In the remote mountains of Montana, a deadly game of cat and mouse is about to unfold. When the most ruthless Mexican cartel sets their sights on a quiet farmland in Ironwood Valley, they believe they're dealing with just another aging rancher. They couldn't be more wrong. Wade Thorne isn't your typical farmer. For 30 years, he was the most lethal Delta Force commander in U.S. military history, leading classified missions that would never see the light of day. His call sign was Phantom, a ghost that struck without warning and vanished without a trace. This is not just another war story. This is about how the deadliest cartel in the Western Hemisphere learned the hard way that some old soldiers never lose their edge. When they came for his land, they didn't realize they were walking into a trap set by a master of asymmetric warfare. What follows is the story of how one man and his elite team would dismantle an entire cartel operation in just 5 days, using nothing but a remote farm, decades of combat experience, and the tactical genius that made him a legend. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The morning frost crunched under Wade Thorne's boots as he walked his property line. Dawn was breaking over the Montana mountains, painting the sky in shades of amber and gold. His German shepherd Atlas trotted beside him, alert and watchful as always. At 65, Wade still moved with the fluid grace of a much younger man, his eyes constantly scanning his surroundings, old habits that had kept him alive through 3 decades of combat. "Something's not right, boy," Wade muttered, kneeling to examine fresh tire tracks in the mud. Atlas growled softly in agreement. The tracks were deep, made by heavy vehicles, and they weren't from any local trucks he recognized. Sarah Bennett, his closest neighbor, pulled up in her weathered pickup. "Wade, thank God you're out here. Did you hear about the Hendersons?" Wade straightened, brushing dirt from his jeans. "What about them?" "They're gone. Just packed up and left last night. No warning, nothing. But this morning, I saw men at their place. Big black SUVs, guys who don't look like they're from around here." "Cartel?" Wade's voice was calm, but his mind was already racing through scenarios, analyzing threats, forming plans. Sarah nodded, her hands gripping her steering wheel tightly. "That's what they're saying in town. They've been moving up from the south, buying up properties. Those who don't sell, well, they find other ways to persuade them." Wade's jaw tightened. "Have they approached you yet?" "No, but Miller's place went last week, same thing. Mysterious buyers, too much money to refuse. Those who stick around say they're using the farms for distribution routes." "Makes sense," Wade said, his tactical mind already mapping it out. Isolated properties, legitimate cover for vehicle traffic, storage facilities already in place. Sarah leaned out her window, lowering her voice. "Wade, these aren't ordinary criminals. They're organized, well-funded. The sheriff's out of his depth and nobody else will stand up to them." Wade patted the side of her truck. "Don't worry about me, Sarah. I've dealt with worse." "Just be careful. They're targeting this valley systematically. Won't be long before they come knocking on your door." As Sarah drove away, Wade whistled for Atlas and headed toward his barn. Inside, beneath the ordinary tools and farm equipment, lay a hidden cellar he'd installed when he first bought the property. Old paranoia, his friends had called it. Wade called it preparation. He lifted the false floorboard, revealing a cache of equipment he'd hoped never to use again. Military-grade communications gear, weapons, tactical gear. Everything he'd need if things went south. He'd spent his entire career planning for worst-case scenarios. This wouldn't be any different. Wade's phone buzzed, a text from an old contact in law enforcement. "Cartel's moving hard and fast. 7 properties taken in the last month. Watch your back." He pocketed the phone and moved to his office, pulling out detailed maps of the valley. His property sat at a crucial junction, controlling the main road and overlooking 3 different approach routes. No wonder they wanted it. The sound of vehicles on the main road caught his attention. Through his window, he watched 3 black SUVs roll past his gate, moving slowly. Too slowly. Reconnaissance. "Marking the next target, Atlas," Wade said, scratching his dog's ears. "But they don't know who they're dealing with." He spent the rest of the morning making calls to old teammates, men who'd fought beside him in places that didn't officially exist, carrying out missions that would never see the light of day. "Knox, it's Phantom. Remember that favor you owe me? Time to pay up." "Wade? Been a long time. How bad is it?" "Cartel's moving into the valley, taking farms, setting up distribution networks. They'll be here soon." A low whistle from the other end. "Need some backup?" "Might not hurt to have the old team together again, one last mission. You know we're not as young as we used to be." Wade smiled grimly. "Neither are they. Call the others. We've got work to do." By afternoon, his plans were in motion. 4 of his old team members were en route. Knox Raven Winters, their sniper. Cyrus Blast Alvarez, demo expert. Zane Ghost Voss, communications specialist. Nash Kestrel, their medic. Together, they'd face down warlords, terrorists, and armies. A cartel wouldn't know what hit them. Wade walked his property again as the sun began to set, this time with different eyes. Not as a farmer, but as a battlefield commander. Every hill, every tree line, every approach, they could all be used. The cartel thought they were targeting an old man's farm. Instead, they were walking into a kill zone designed by one of the most experienced special operations commanders in history. Atlas barked suddenly, alerting Wade to more vehicles approaching. The same SUVs from earlier, this time stopping at his gate. Wade straightened his back, adjusted his worn baseball cap, and prepared to play the role of a simple farmer. Let them think he was harmless. Let them underestimate him. It was a mistake they would only make once. 5 men emerged from the SUVs, their expensive suits out of place against the rugged Montana landscape. Wade counted 2 more staying with the vehicles, hands concealed beneath jackets. Atlas growled softly beside him, but a gentle touch from Wade kept him quiet. Felix El Espectro Reyes led the group, his polished boots crunching on gravel as he approached. His smile was practiced, professional, but his eyes were cold as winter steel. "Mr. Thorne, beautiful property you have here." Felix extended his hand. Wade took it, noting the man's grip, too firm, trying to establish dominance. A amateur's tactic. "What can I do for you, gentlemen?" Wade's voice was friendly, measured, playing the role of a simple farmer while his mind cataloged every detail. 2 men moving toward his barn, trying to be subtle about it. One by the gate with a radio. Military training, but sloppy. They'd grown too comfortable. "We represent an investment group," Felix said, gesturing to the valley. "We've been acquiring properties in the area, expanding operations, you might say. Your land, it has certain features that interest us." Wade leaned against his fence post, the picture of relaxation. Inside, he was marking fields of fire, cataloging weapons, noting their stances. Ex-military, at least 3 of them. The others were muscle, used to intimidating civilians. "Not interested in selling," Wade said simply. "Land's been in my family too long." Felix's smile tightened. "Perhaps I wasn't clear. We're prepared to offer significantly above market value. $3 million, cash. More than generous for a ranch this size." Wade scratched Atlas behind the ears, buying time to observe the 2 men by his barn. They were checking sight lines, defensive positions. Not real estate investors. Advance team, mapping the property for an assault. "Money's not everything," Wade replied. "Some things aren't for sale." The friendly facade cracked slightly. Felix stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Mr. Thorne, let me be direct. This valley is changing. Progress, you might say. You can be part of that change and profit from it, or... Wade's voice remained calm, even as he noted the subtle shift in the men's positions. Surrounding him, standard intimidation formation. "Or you might find this valley becoming very unwelcoming. Accidents happen, especially to stubborn old men who don't know when to take a good deal." Wade straightened slowly, allowing just a hint of steel to enter his voice. "Sounds like a threat, Mr. Reyes." Felix's eyes widened slightly at the use of his name, a name Wade shouldn't have known. A calculated slip to let them know he wasn't as ignorant as he appeared. "Simply stating facts," Felix recovered quickly. The valley is changing. Fighting it would be unwise. One of the men by the barn called out in Spanish, something about security cameras. Wade had let them spot the obvious ones, hiding his real surveillance system much more carefully. "Think about it," Felix said, producing a business card. "You have 24 hours. After that, the offer becomes significantly less generous." Wade took the card, noting the fake company name, Standard Cartel Front. "I'll sleep on it." "See that you do." Felix turned to leave, then paused. "Beautiful dog. German Shepherd, yes? Would be a shame if something happened to him." Atlas growled, picking up on Wade's tension. Wade kept his hand gentle on the dog's head, but his voice carried the weight of 3 decades of combat experience. That would be a very serious mistake. Something in his tone made Felix hesitate, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. For just a moment, the mask slipped, and Wade saw genuine surprise. They'd expected an easy mark, a simple farmer they could bully or buy. Instead, they'd caught a glimpse of something else, something that set off warning bells. Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The cartel men retreated to their vehicles, trying to maintain their confident swagger. Wade watched them drive away, already planning his next moves. His phone buzzed, a text from Knox. 4 hours out. Teams assembled. Wade typed back, "Make it 3, company's already knocking." Inside his house, Wade activated his real security system. Cameras hidden in trees covered every approach. Motion sensors monitored the perimeter. Everything fed into a command center he'd built in his basement, a holdover from years of planning for worst-case scenarios. He pulled up satellite images of the valley, marking known cartel properties. 7 farms taken in the last month, each one strategic. His land was the missing piece, controlling the main valley access point and providing clear lines of sight for miles. His phone rang again. Sarah, her voice tight with worry. "Wade, they were at your place, weren't they? I saw the SUVs." "Just a friendly business proposition," Wade replied, checking his weapon caches. "Nothing to worry about." "Don't lie to me." Miller tried to stand up to them. Next day, his barn burned down. Day after that, his wife's car crashed on a straight road. No witnesses. "Sarah, listen carefully. Next few days, stay with your sister in Missoula. Don't tell anyone you're going." "Wade, what are you planning?" "Better you don't know, just trust me." After hanging up, Wade descended into his cellar. The hidden room was exactly as he'd left it, weapons and equipment maintained and ready. He began checking each piece methodically, muscle memory taking over as he field-stripped and reassembled rifles. Atlas whined softly from above. Wade paused, listening. Another vehicle approaching, different engine sound. He checked the cameras, local sheriff's department. Deputy Mike Hayes, young and out of his depth but honest. Wade met him at the gate. Hayes looked nervous, shuffling his feet. "Mr. Thorne, heard you had visitors today." "Word travels fast." "Listen, about the others, Miller, the Hendersons. We know what happened, but we can't prove anything. These people, they're connected. Evidence disappears, witnesses change their stories." Wade nodded. "And you're here to advise me to take the deal?" Hayes looked ashamed. "They own half the valley already. Fighting them, it's suicide." "Appreciate the warning, Deputy, but I can handle myself." As Hayes drove away, Wade's phone chimed again. A message from Zane. "Intercepted their comms. Full assault planned. They're not waiting 24 hours. Wade smiled grimly. "Perfect. Let them come in force. Let them think they had the advantage." 3 decades of combat experience had taught him that overconfident enemies made mistakes, and he'd learned long ago how to turn those mistakes into opportunities. He had 3 hours until his team arrived, 3 hours to turn his farm into a fortress. The cartel thought they were dealing with a stubborn old man. By morning, they'd realize their mistake, but by then, it would be far too late. The sound of engines echoing through the valley caught Wade's attention. Through his security feeds, he watched 4 vehicles approaching from different directions, his team using old tactics to avoid being tracked. Knox's black pickup came first, followed by Cyrus in a weathered Jeep. Zane and Nash arrived minutes later, their vehicles covered in dust from backroad driving. Wade met them in the barn, away from prying eyes. 20 years melted away as his old team assembled, their movements still synchronized after all this time. Knox, his sniper, carried his custom rifle case like it was part of him. Cyrus brought enough explosives to level a small town, all carefully concealed in construction equipment cases. Zane's communication gear looked civilian, but Wade knew it could crack military-grade encryption. Nash's medical kit was upgraded but familiar. He'd patched them up through worse situations than this. "Just like old times," Knox said, his voice gruff but warm. "Though usually we had a government backing us up." "Government would just slow us down," Cyrus replied, already examining the barn's structure. "Nice setup, Wade. Good sight lines, multiple escape routes. You weren't kidding about being ready." Wade spread a detailed map across his workbench. Cartel's been systematic, taking key properties, establishing distribution routes. They're not just running drugs, they're setting up a permanent operation. Zane connected his laptop, bringing up intercepted communications. They're professional, ex-military in their ranks, mostly Mexican special forces, but they're arrogant, sloppy with their security. "Their mistake," Nash observed, organizing his medical supplies. "How many are we dealing with?" "Main force is 30 men, Wade pointed to marked locations. 2 separate groups. First team's the muscle. They handle intimidation, arson, accidents. Second team's their professionals, actual combat experience, proper tactical training." Knox examined the terrain through the barn door. "Kill zone's perfect. Natural bottleneck here. High ground advantage. We can funnel them right where we want them." "They'll come in force," Wade warned. "No more pretense of being businessmen. They've got heavy weapons, armor, probably air support." "Good," Cyrus grinned, pulling out his demolition plans. "Been a while since we had a proper fight." "This isn't just about holding them off," Wade's voice turned serious. "We end this. Permanently. Not just here. We shut down their entire operation in the valley." The team sobered, recognizing the tone. It was the voice that had led them through impossible missions, that had brought them all home alive when the odds said otherwise. "Why'd you really come?" Wade asked, looking at each man. "You could have stayed retired, stayed safe." Nash spoke first, his medical bag open beside him. "Remember Kosovo? That village we found after the militia went through? Some things you can't walk away from. Some fights need fighting." "Cartels took my cousin's farm in Texas," Cyrus added, checking detonator wires. "By the time anyone could do anything, it was too late. Not happening again. Not here." Knox just shrugged, but his eyes were hard. "You called. That's enough." Zane looked up from his computer. "They're moving faster than we thought. Intercepted orders. Main force mobilizing for tonight. No warning, no negotiation. They're coming to take the farm and send a message." "Perfect," Wade smiled grimly. "Let's give them a message of their own." They spent the next hour fortifying key positions. Cyrus rigged the main road with explosives that could flip an armored vehicle. Knox set up 3 different sniper nests, each covering a different approach. Zane established a command center in Wade's basement, linking their communications and surveillance. "Remember Kandahar?" Knox asked as they worked. "That night raid that went sideways?" "When the whole city lit up," Cyrus chuckled. "Never saw so much firepower in my life." "Until Wade called an audible," Nash added. "Turned their own defenses against them. Still don't know how you knew that would work." "Simple," Wade said, checking ammunition stores. "People get predictable when they think they have the advantage. Cartel's the same way. They're used to civilians, used to easy victories. They won't be ready for what's coming." Zane's voice crackled over their earpieces. "Movement at the Henderson place. They're assembling their force. Thermal imaging shows at least 20 vehicles." "They're not subtle anymore," Cyrus observed, finishing his last explosive trap. "Coming in like an army." "Good," Wade replied. "Means they're scared. Scared men make mistakes." The sun was setting now, casting long shadows across the valley. Wade stood with his team on the porch, watching the day fade. They were no longer young men, but age had brought something else: experience, patience, the kind of wisdom that only comes from decades of combat. "Knox, I want you in the North Tower. Best sightlines, and they won't expect anyone up there. Cyrus, rig the barn for remote detonation. Make it look like a tempting target. Zane, keep monitoring their comms. The moment they split their forces, we take advantage. Nash, medical station in the basement, but be ready to move. This gets hot, we'll need you mobile." Each man nodded, understanding their roles without need for further explanation. This wasn't their first impossible mission, just maybe their last. "One more thing," Wade added, his voice carrying the weight of command. "We're not just defending a farm. We're defending every family in this valley, every person these bastards would victimize. We do this right, we do it clean, and we do it permanent." As his team moved to their positions, Wade checked his weapons one final time. Atlas sat beside him, alert and ready. In the distance, he could see dust clouds rising, the cartel's forces assembling. They thought they were preparing to raid an old man's farm. Instead, they were walking into a trap laid by some of the most experienced combat veterans alive. The radio crackled. Zane's voice was tight. "First wave moving out. ETA 20 minutes. "Copy that," Wade replied, signaling to his team. "Remember, let them get comfortable. Let them think they have the advantage. Then we show them what real soldiers can do." The Montana sun disappeared behind the mountains, plunging the valley into darkness. But darkness had always been their ally. In the shadows, Wade Thorne wasn't a farmer anymore. He was Phantom again, the ghost that hunted other ghosts. And he was about to remind the cartel why that name had once struck fear into the hearts of far more dangerous men than them. Moonlight silvered the Montana landscape as Wade watched the cartel convoy approach through his night vision scope. 20 vehicles, moving in formation. Someone had trained them well. Too bad they'd forgotten the first rule of combat: never fight on ground your enemy is prepared. "They're splitting up," Zane's voice crackled through the comm. 3 teams, main force coming up the central road, 2 flanking units trying to circle wide. Knox's voice was cold and professional from his sniper's nest. "Got eyes on the lead vehicle. Officer types in the back seat. Want me to take the shot?" "Negative," Wade replied. "Let them get comfortable, spring the trap on my mark." The convoy's headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating the road to Wade's farm. They moved with confidence, no attempt at stealth. Why bother? They thought they were hunting an old man. "Contact in 2 minutes," Cyrus reported. "Charges are set. These boys are in for a surprise." Wade watched through his scope as the first vehicles reached his outer perimeter. The cartel soldiers emerged with military precision, weapons ready, moving in practiced formations. Felix El Espectro Reyes stepped out of an armored SUV, directing his men with hand signals. "Spread out," Felix ordered in Spanish. "I want this place surrounded. No one gets out alive." "They're deploying heavy weapons," Zane warned. 50 cals on the trucks. RPGs in the second wave. Wade's voice remained calm. "Stick to the plan. Let them commit." The cartel forces advanced steadily, moving past the first line of Wade's defenses without noticing them. 50 meters. 40. 30. They were almost in position. "Sir," one of Felix's men called out. "No movement in the house. Thermals showing nothing." Felix grabbed his radio. "Check the barn, he has to be here somewhere." 3 cartel soldiers approached the barn, weapons ready. Wade watched them through his scope, counting down in his head. This was the moment that would set the tone. "Now," Wade commanded. Cyrus detonated his first series of charges. The ground erupted beneath the lead vehicles, sending them airborne in a shower of dirt and metal. Before the dust settled, Knox opened fire from his hidden position. 2 cartel soldiers dropped before they realized they were under attack. "What the hell?" Felix shouted, diving for cover. "Where's the fire coming from?" The night exploded into chaos. Wade's team had prepared kill zones throughout the property, and now they put them to use. Every time the cartel forces tried to rally, they found themselves caught in interlocking fields of fire. 3 trying to flank east, Knox reported calmly, his rifle cracking in the darkness. Got them, Cyrus responded. A series of explosions drove the flanking team right into Nash's line of fire. Wade moved like a ghost through the darkness, years of combat experience guiding every step. He caught 2 cartel soldiers by surprise, disarming one and using him as a shield against the other's fire. Both went down without a sound. "Who are these guys?" A cartel soldier screamed over their radio. "This isn't right. They're too organized." Felix's voice cut through the chaos. "They're professionals. Fall back to the vehicles. Reform defensive positions." "Too late," Wade whispered, triggering another set of charges. The explosions cut off their retreat, trapping the cartel forces in the kill zone. Knox's rifle spoke again. "Technical at your 3 o'clock, Wade. Gunners down, but drivers still up." Wade rolled behind a tractor as 50 caliber rounds tore through the air where he'd been standing. The technical's driver was good, keeping the vehicle moving to avoid return fire. But he'd forgotten to watch his flanks. "Cyrus," Wade called, "time to use that toy you brought." A rocket streaked through the darkness, striking the technical's engine block. The vehicle flipped, cartwheeling off the road in a ball of flame. "Damn, I missed that," Cyrus laughed. "Just like Damascus." "Stay focused," Wade ordered. "They're regrouping." Felix had managed to rally his remaining men behind the wreckage of their vehicles. They had training, Wade gave them that. Even caught by surprise, they were adapting quickly. "Zane, what's their strength?" Wade asked, moving to a new position. 18 still combat effective. They're calling for reinforcements. Second wave is 30 minutes out. "They won't last that long," Knox stated flatly, his rifle ending another cartel soldier's attempt to flank their position. Wade watched Felix directing his men, noting their movements. They were trying to establish a base of fire, create space for their reinforcements to arrive. Standard military doctrine. Time to show them why standard responses get you killed. "Cyrus, hit their rally point. Knox, watch for runners. Nash, be ready. Some of them are about to need medical attention." Multiple explosions ripped through the cartel's position. Wade moved through the chaos like a wraith, his suppressed rifle ending threats before they could materialize. 2 decades of fighting had taught him the value of economy of motion. No wasted movements, no hesitation. "Contact front," a cartel soldier screamed. "He's inside our perimeter." Wade's reply was swift and silent. 3 more went down before they could turn to face him. Felix was shouting orders, trying to organize a defense against an enemy that seemed to be everywhere at once. "Who are you?" Felix screamed into the darkness. "What kind of farmer fights like this?" "The kind you shouldn't have threatened," Wade replied, his voice seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere. The cartel's first assault was falling apart. What had started as a confident attack had turned into a desperate struggle for survival. Of the original 20 vehicles, 8 were burning. Of the 40 men Felix had brought, less than half were still fighting. "Pull back," Felix ordered. "Full retreat. Get back to the rally point." "I don't think so," Wade said calmly. "Knox?" The sniper's rifle cracked 3 times. The remaining vehicle's tires exploded, stranding them in the kill zone. "El Fantasma is going to kill us all," Felix muttered, realizing the trap they were in. "El Fantasma should have done his homework," Wade replied, stepping out of the shadows behind Felix. "Should have asked why no one had ever successfully attacked this farm." Felix spun, raising his weapon, but he was too slow. Wade's strike was precise, efficient. The cartel leader dropped unconscious as his remaining men surrendered. "Area secure," Knox reported. "No runners." "Nash, we've got wounded," Wade directed. "Stabilize them." "Zane, what's the status on their reinforcements?" "Still inbound. 20 minutes out. Bigger force this time. Looks like they're bringing everything they have." Wade nodded, zip-tying Felix's unconscious form. "Good, let them come. First wave was just to remind us of what we can do. Next wave is where we show them who we really are." The team gathered briefly, checking weapons and reloading. The night was still young, and this was just the beginning. The real battle was still to come, but now they were warmed up, synchronized, ready. "Just like old times," Nash said, treating a wounded cartel soldier. "Better," Wade replied, checking his ammunition. "This time we're fighting on our terms, on our ground. And this time, we're finishing it for good. The aftermath of the first battle left Wade's farm eerily quiet. Burning vehicles cast orange glows across the Montana night, while zip-tied cartel soldiers sat under Nash's watchful eye. Felix was starting to stir, his face showing the dawning realization of just how badly they'd miscalculated. 16 prisoners, Nash reported, finishing another field dressing. 3 critical, but stable. Rest are walking wounded. Wade knelt beside Felix, who glared up at him with a mixture of fear and defiance. "Now then," Wade said quietly, "let's talk about El Fantasma." "Go to hell," Felix spat, then switched to Spanish, cursing. "Your choice," Wade replied in perfect Spanish, shocking Felix into silence. "But your reinforcements are coming into my kill zone in less than 15 minutes. Would be a shame if they made the same mistakes you did." Zane approached, laptop in hand. "Intercepted their communications. El Fantasma's coming personally. He's pissed, bringing in heavy weapons, professional contractors. This isn't going to be like the first wave." Felix laughed, a harsh sound. "You're all dead. El Fantasma doesn't leave witnesses. He'll burn this whole valley to get to you." "How many?" Wade asked calmly. "Enough to kill you 10 times over," Felix sneered. "Former Mexican special forces, Colombian mercenaries, Cartel's best killers. They'll—" Wade cut him off. "I meant, how many families have you terrorized? How many farms have you taken? How many accidents have you arranged?" The question caught Felix off guard. For just a moment, his arrogance cracked, showing uncertainty beneath. "Knox," Wade called. "What do you see?" The sniper's voice crackled over their comms. "Multiple vehicles, different approach vectors. They're being smart this time. Thermal shows at least 40 troops, maybe more. Multiple heavy weapons teams." "They're spreading out," Cyrus added. "Won't fall for the same trap twice." Wade turned back to Felix. "Last chance. Help us end this with minimal bloodshed, or watch more of your men die needlessly." "You don't understand what you're dealing with," Felix said, his voice dropping. "El Fantasma. He's different. He enjoys the violence, the killing. You should run while you can." "Already met men like him," Wade replied, standing. "In places much worse than this. They're all the same in the end." Zane's voice cut through the night. "First elements reaching the outer perimeter. They're moving slower, checking for traps." Wade moved to his team, their faces illuminated by burning wreckage. "They'll come from multiple directions this time, looking to overwhelm us with numbers and firepower. Knox, I want you mobile. Change positions after every few shots. Cyrus, time for the secondary charges. Zane, keep their comms scrambled. Nash." "I know," the medic nodded toward the prisoners. "Keep them secure, keep them alive." "Remember," Wade added, "they're expecting us to be tired, maybe wounded. They think the first fight cost us. Let them think that. Let them get overconfident." A new voice cut through their radio frequencies, deep, commanding, speaking Spanish with a Sinaloa accent. El Fantasma himself, directing his forces. "Found their command channel," Zane reported. "Want me to jam it?" "No," Wade smiled grimly. "Let them talk. Fear works better when they can share it." The team split up, moving to predetermined positions. Years of working together meant they barely needed words. Each man knew his role, trusted the others to play theirs. Through his night vision, Wade watched the cartel's second wave advancing. Their movement was more professional now, leapfrogging between cover, maintaining proper intervals. El Fantasma had indeed brought his best. "Contact in 2 minutes," Knox reported. "Got eyes on their command element. El Fantasma's in the black Suburban, 3 vehicles back, heavily guarded." "Cyrus," Wade directed, "give them something to think about." A series of explosions ripped through the night, not aimed at the cartel forces but illuminating the battlefield. In the sudden light, they could see what they were walking into. Defensive positions covering every approach, kill zones arranged with mathematical precision. "Mother of God," one of the cartel soldiers whispered over their open channel. "The whole property's fortified." "Keep advancing," El Fantasma's voice commanded. "They're just trying to scare us. Press the attack." Wade's voice cut into their frequency, speaking calm Spanish. 43 minutes ago, I had twice your number in body bags or zip ties. That was when I was being gentle. Last warning, withdraw, or meet the same fate. The cartel forces hesitated, their advance faltering. El Fantasma's response was immediate and brutal. He shot one of his own men who had stopped moving. "The next one who shows cowardice dies by my hand," he roared. "Forward! Kill them all!" "Well," Wade sighed, switching back to his team's channel, "can't say we didn't try. Cyrus?" "Got something special for them," the demo expert replied. "Remember that trick we used in Fallujah?" "Do it." The night erupted in carefully orchestrated chaos. Explosions chain-reacted across the battlefield, but these weren't meant to kill. They were precise, tactical, cutting off escape routes, separating units from each other, creating confusion and panic. "They're spread too thin," Knox reported, his rifle cracking methodically. "Taking targets of opportunity." Wade moved through the darkness like a ghost, his movements calculated and precise. Two cartel soldiers never saw him coming. One moment they were advancing, the next they were unconscious. "Who are you people?" El Fantasma's voice roared over the radio. Wade's response was cold and precise. "You wanted this farm so badly? Welcome to it. Let me show you why they used to call me Phantom." The battle was about to enter its true phase. The cartel had brought their best, their most hardened killers. But they were about to learn the difference between killers and soldiers, between thugs with guns and men who had spent decades perfecting the art of warfare. In the distance, El Fantasma was shouting orders, trying to regain control of a battlefield that was rapidly dissolving into chaos. But Wade had fought in places where chaos was a weapon, where darkness was an ally, and where fear could be turned against those who wielded it. "Remember," Wade told his team, "let them come to us. Let them think they're winning. Then show them why you don't threaten a Delta operator's home." The real battle was about to begin, and this time, there would be no holding back. El Fantasma's assault hit like a thunderstorm. Automatic weapons fire lit up the night, heavy caliber rounds tearing through Wade's outer defenses. His forces moved with professional precision, using suppressing fire to cover their advance. This wasn't the sloppy attack of the first wave. This was a coordinated military operation. "Multiple teams 9 o'clock, Knox reported, his rifle responding with measured shots. "They're using proper fire and maneuver. These aren't cartel thugs." Wade watched through his thermal scope as El Fantasma's men established support positions. "Former Mexican Special Forces," he confirmed. "See how they move? They've done this before." A rocket streaked through the darkness, exploding against Wade's barn. The structure held, reinforced exactly for this scenario, but the message was clear. The cartel wasn't playing anymore. "They're probing our defenses," Cyrus called out. "Looking for weak points. Want me to discourage them?" "Not yet," Wade replied. "Let them commit more forces." El Fantasma's voice boomed across the battlefield. "You cannot hide forever. We will burn everything you have." Wade's response was a precisely placed shot that shattered the cartel boss's spotlight. Darkness reclaimed the battlefield. Darkness that Wade's team had prepared for, had trained in for decades. "Three-man team trying to flank east," Knox reported. "I see them," Wade responded. "Cyrus, give them something to think about." A series of charges detonated, not to kill but to herd. The flanking team found themselves pushed right into Nash's field of fire. His suppressed MP5 spoke 3 times. 3 bodies hit the ground. "They're coordinating better now," Zane warned. "Multiple channels, encrypted comms. These guys are professionals." Wade moved like a shadow through his property, every step calculated. 2 cartel soldiers were setting up a machine gun nest. Good position, good fields of fire. They never saw him coming. The first went down to a throat strike, the second to a precision takedown he'd learned in advanced hand-to-hand combat. "Command vehicle moving," Knox called out. "El Fantasma's repositioning, strong security detail." Let him, Wade replied. He's looking for a pattern. Let's give him one. The battle shifted into a new phase. El Fantasma's men were good. They'd clearly fought in urban combat before. But Wade's team had written the book on this kind of warfare. Every time the cartel forces thought they'd found an advantage, it turned into a trap.
RPG team, you're 2 o'clock,
Zane shouted. Wade rolled behind cover as rockets screamed overhead. The explosions were massive, professional-grade weapons. These weren't street thugs with black market gear. This was military hardware.
Knox, priority target. Take out those RPGs.
Bit busy? The sniper grunted.
Got 3 teams trying to flank my position.
Cyrus? On it. More explosions lit up the night. The RPG team disappeared in a controlled blast that sent their weapons flying but left them alive. Precision demolitions work that only decades of experience could achieve. El Fantasma was getting frustrated. His men were dying or being captured, yet they couldn't seem to get a solid fix on their opponents. Every advance met resistance from unexpected angles. Every tactical advantage evaporated before they could exploit it.
Push forward, he commanded. They're only 5 men. We have the numbers.
Numbers don't mean much against ghosts. Wade's voice cut through their command channel. How many men are you willing to lose tonight? A burst of automatic fire answered him. Wade didn't flinch. He'd already moved from that position, anticipating the response. 2 more cartel soldiers went down to precise shots from his suppressed rifle.
West sector's getting heavy, Nash reported. They're making a serious push.
That's their feint, Wade replied. Knox, watch the east. That's where their real attack's coming. Sure enough, while one team pushed aggressively from the west, their best operators were moving quietly through the eastern approach. It was a solid tactic, one that would have worked against most opponents. I count 12, Knox said quietly. Elite team, moving like professionals. These are their best.
Good, Wade replied. Cyrus, Nash, shift east. Knox, hold your fire until my mark. Let's show them what real professionals can do.
The elite cartel team moved with impressive skill, using every bit of cover, maintaining perfect spacing. They were halfway to their objective when Wade sprung his trap. Cyrus's charges illuminated the night, not damaging but disorienting. Before the cartel operators could adjust their night vision, Knox opened fire from his elevated position. Every shot found its mark, not killing but disabling, taking out knees and shoulders with surgical precision. Clear them up, Wade ordered, and Nash moved in with swift efficiency, securing the wounded operators. El Fantasma's voice was tight with barely controlled rage. Who are you people?
You really should have done your research, Wade replied calmly. Asked around about who owned this farm, about why no one had ever successfully attacked it.
A new sound cut through the night. Helicopter rotors.
Boss, they're bringing in air support, Zane warned.
Right on schedule, Wade smiled. Cyrus? Oh yeah, got something special for choppers. Just say when. The helicopter swept in low, its spotlight cutting through the darkness. The door gunner opened up with a minigun, stitching a line of destruction across Wade's property. But the team had prepared for this too. Now, Wade commanded. Cyrus triggered a specialized charge. Not an explosion, a massive flashbang designed specifically for aircraft. The helicopter pilot, momentarily blinded, yanked the stick back. The sudden move threw off the gunner's aim.
Knox!
The sniper's rifle cracked once. The spotlight exploded, plunging the helicopter back into darkness. 2 more precise shots disabled the minigun. You can land safely, Wade broadcast to the pilot, or you can crash. Your choice. The helicopter retreated, its pilot choosing wisdom over valor. On the ground, El Fantasma was shouting orders with increasing desperation. His elite team was down, his air support driven off, and his men were losing cohesion. How many more men are you willing to sacrifice? Wade asked over their channel. How many bodies before you realize you've made a mistake? The response was immediate, a massive barrage of automatic weapons fire. But Wade had already moved.
ghosting through the darkness to a new position. 20 years ago, they'd called him Phantom because he could appear anywhere, strike without warning, vanish before the enemy could respond. Tonight, he was reminding them why.
El Phantasma's voice cut through the chaos with cold fury. "Burn everything. Burn it all to the ground." His men deployed incendiary weapons, trying to deny Wade's team their carefully prepared positions. The night lit up with phosphorus and thermite, turning the battlefield into a hellscape of fire and smoke.
"They're getting desperate," Knox observed, relocating as flames consumed his previous sniper nest. "Making mistakes." "Careful," Wade warned. "Desperate men are unpredictable. Zane, what are you seeing?"
They're splitting into 3 groups. Main force still pushing center, but they're deploying their best units wide, trying to flank through the burning zones. A massive explosion rocked the farmhouse as the cartel deployed satchel charges against the outer walls. The reinforced structure held, but the message was clear. They were done probing and ready to destroy everything. "Sir," Nash called out, "we've got wounded to evacuate. These fires are getting too close to the holding area."
Wade processed the tactical situation in seconds. "Knox, cover the east approach. Cyrus, buy us some time. Everyone else, fall back to position 3. We're not losing anyone tonight." Cyrus's voice was grim. "Got something special saved for this. Might want to cover your eyes."
Multiple explosions chained across the property, but these were different, magnesium bright, creating walls of light that temporarily blinded anyone looking in their direction. In the confusion, Wade's team executed a fighting withdrawal, moving their prisoners and wounded to a fortified storm cellar they'd prepared for exactly this scenario. "They're pushing hard on the west side," Knox reported, his rifle cracking steadily. "These guys are different. Cartel's elite death squad. I recognize their tactics from the briefings." "Los Fantasmas," Wade confirmed. "El Fantasma's personal kill team. Ex-Mexican special forces who went rogue. They're good." "Not good enough," Knox replied, punctuating his words with precise shots. The death squad moved with fluid grace, using the fires as cover. They were well equipped. Thermal imaging, advanced body armor, military-grade weapons. These weren't cartel thugs. These were professional killers. "Contact!" Zane shouted. 3 death squad members had breached the inner perimeter, moving with lethal precision toward the command center. Wade moved to intercept, but they had him pinned with well-coordinated fire. "Little help here," Wade called out, surprisingly calm despite the bullets cutting through the air around him. "Working on it," Cyrus replied. The ground erupted beneath the death squad, not with explosives, but with compressed air and dirt. A non-lethal but disorienting blast that broke their formation. Wade capitalized instantly, closing the distance. The fight was brief, but brutal. The death squad members were excellent shots, but Wade had spent decades mastering close-quarter combat. The first went down to a throat strike knife disarm combination. The second managed to land a solid hit before Wade's elbow strike found the sweet spot behind his ear. The third proved tougher, clearly their hand-to-hand specialist. "Impressive," the man said in accented English, squaring up with a fighter's stance. "But you're still just an old man." Wade's response was a lightning-fast combination that ended with the specialist unconscious on the ground. "Age and treachery, kid." "We've got a problem," Zane cut in. "They're bringing up something big. Thermals showing. Oh, hell. They've got a technical with a heavy autocannon." The sound of the 20mm cannon split the night, its rounds powerful enough to punch through Wade's reinforced walls. This wasn't about taking the farm anymore. This was about complete destruction. "Knox, can you get a shot?" "Negative. They've got it too well protected. Need a new angle." Wade thought fast. The cannon was devastating, but it had weaknesses. "Cyrus, remember Serbia? That arms depot?" "The one with the tanks? Yeah, that was... Oh, I like where this is going." "Can you do it?"
"Just like old times, boss. Give me 2 minutes."
El Fantasma's voice boomed across their comms. "You see? This is what happens to those who resist. We will reduce this place to ash." The autocannon continued its devastating barrage, but Wade had fought against worse. "Zane, patch me into their frequency. Time to explain something to our friend." "Channels open." Wade's voice was cold and professional. "That's an impressive gun. Russian-made, probably stolen from a military depot. Very effective against buildings. Not so great against what's coming." "You're finished," El Fantasma shouted. "Your defenses are breaking." "Look to your left." The cartel boss did, just in time to see Cyrus's surprise. The old barn, which they thought was just burning, suddenly revealed its secret. The entire structure had been rigged as a massive directional blast, focusing its force right at the technical. The explosion wasn't meant to destroy. That would have been too dangerous. Instead, it created a massive pressure wave that overturned the vehicle, rendering the cannon useless and sending El Fantasma's men scrambling for cover. "That was our excuse to keep things civil," Wade announced. "Push any harder, and we stop being nice." "Kill them all!" El Fantasma screamed, but there was an edge of fear in his voice now. His men were dying or surrendering, his best units were down, and his heavy weapons were being systematically eliminated. "Boss," Nash called out. "Got movement in the tree line. Looks like they're bringing up their reserve force." "Good," Wade replied. "About time they committed everything. Knox, you know what to do." The sniper's rifle began its deadly work, not killing but methodically disabling vehicles, weapons, and equipment. Each shot was calculated to reduce the cartel's options, to force them into predictable responses. "They're pulling back," Zane reported, "regrouping around their command vehicle." Wade checked his ammunition, noting the fires still burning across his property. The farm was damaged but not destroyed. His team was tired but not beaten. And El Fantasma had just made his biggest mistake, consolidating his forces into one location. "All units," Wade commanded. "Prepare for final phase. Remember, we're not just defending anymore. Time to show them why you don't bring a cartel to a Delta Force fight." The night was about to get much worse for El Fantasma and his men. They thought they were winning by forcing Wade's team to fall back. Instead, they were walking right into the trap he'd been setting up since the beginning. Wade watched El Fantasma's forces consolidate around their command vehicle, exactly where he wanted them. The cartel boss thought he was being smart, concentrating his remaining strength. Instead, he'd just put all his assets in one kill zone. "All units, execute Phoenix Protocol," Wade commanded. His team's acknowledgements came in quick succession. They'd drilled this scenario countless times in their active duty days. "Stand by for some fireworks," Cyrus announced. "Those charges we didn't use earlier, they're about to earn their keep." Knox's voice was cold and professional. "Target area mapped. I've got clean shots on their command and control elements." "Remember," Wade reminded them, "we want survivors. They need to carry our message back." The counterattack began with surgical precision. Cyrus's charges detonated in sequence, not to kill but to isolate. Walls of fire and smoke cut off escape routes, channeling the cartel forces exactly where Wade wanted them. "What are they doing?" El Fantasma demanded, watching his carefully positioned men suddenly trapped in overlapping fields of fire. "Teaching you about real combat," Wade replied over their channel. "Pay attention. This is how professionals work." Knox's rifle spoke first, taking out their communications array with 3 precise shots. Next went their vehicle engines, each disabled with methodical efficiency. The cartel forces were now deaf, blind, and immobile. "You think this changes anything?" El Fantasma shouted, but his voice carried an edge of panic. "I have more men, more resources." "Not anymore," Wade replied, as Zane's electronic warfare suite kicked in, flooding their frequencies with static. "Right now, your reinforcements are being intercepted by state police." Amazing what happens when someone provides actionable intelligence about cartel movements. The cartel boss's response was predictable, ordering his men to attack in all directions. But Wade's team had trained for exactly this scenario. They moved like ghosts through the smoke and chaos, appearing and disappearing at will. Contact front! A cartel soldier screamed, firing at shadows. Wade was already gone, his strikes precise and devastating. 3 more went down before they realized where he was, and by then, he'd moved again. "They're not human," another soldier cried out in Spanish. "They're everywhere." "Keep fighting," El Fantasma commanded, but his authority was crumbling. His men were experienced soldiers, but they'd never faced anything like this, an enemy that seemed to materialize from nowhere, strike without warning, and vanish before they could respond. Nash's voice crackled over the comm. "Sir, they're breaking formation. East sector's starting to run." "Heard them," Wade ordered. "Knox, discourage any heroes." The sniper's rifle cracked methodically, rounds impacting at the feet of anyone trying to flee. The message was clear: stay put or get worse. "You're trapped in here with us," Wade broadcast to the cartel forces. "But we're not trapped in here with you. We are the trap." Cyrus's next series of charges demonstrated this perfectly. Careful detonations split the cartel's remaining forces into isolated pockets, each one cut off from support and exposed to precise fire from multiple angles. "Western group is surrendering," Zane reported. "Eastern group is... Wait. Movement by the command vehicle. El Fantasma's making a break for it." "Let him run," Wade replied. "Right to where we want him." The cartel boss had grabbed 2 of his best remaining men, using the chaos to slip away from the main fight. He moved well. Clearly, he hadn't always been just a commander, but Wade had planned for this too. El Fantasma's escape route led him straight into a prepared position. One moment he was running, the next he was face to face with Wade himself. "Impressive operation you had here," Wade said conversationally, his rifle trained center mass. "Good men, good equipment, solid tactics. But you made one critical mistake." "And what's that?" El Fantasma snarled, his hand inching toward a concealed weapon. "You thought fear only worked one way." Wade's voice carried decades of combat experience. "You're used to being the one people fear. Tonight, you learn what real fear feels like." The cartel boss moved fast, drawing his pistol in a practiced motion. But Wade was faster. One precise shot knocked the weapon away. Another dropped El Fantasma's remaining guards. "You know what the difference is between your men and mine?" Wade asked, advancing as El Fantasma scrambled backward. "Training, experience, but most importantly, purpose. You fight for money. We fought for something more." Around them, the battle was ending. Most of the cartel forces had surrendered, realizing the futility of their position. Those still fighting were being systematically isolated and neutralized. "Do you know why they called me Phantom?" Wade asked, his voice carrying across the battlefield. "Not because I was hard to find. Because by the time you did find me, it was already too late." El Fantasma made his final mistake, reaching for a backup weapon. Wade's response was instantaneous and precise. The cartel boss collapsed, clutching his shoulder, his face registering shock at how quickly it had happened. "Gather the survivors," Wade commanded his team. "I want them to hear this clearly." As his team rounded up the remaining cartel forces, Wade stood before them, his presence commanding absolute attention. These weren't just defeated soldiers. They were witnesses to something they'd never seen before. "You're alive because we chose precision over power," Wade announced. "You'll remain alive as long as you remember this lesson. This valley is protected. Not by cops, not by guns, but by something far more dangerous. Men who've spent their lives learning how to fight smarter, not harder." Knox's voice came over the comm. "Police forces approaching from the south, 10 minutes out." "Perfect timing," Wade replied. He turned back to the captured cartel forces. "You have a choice now. Stay and face American justice, or run back to your bosses. Either way, spread the word. The next cartel that tries to take this valley won't get the gentle treatment you got tonight." El Fantasma, still clutching his wounded shoulder, looked up at Wade with a mixture of fear and respect. Who are you really?" Wade smiled grimly, just a farmer protecting his land. But before that, I was the ghost that haunted better men than you. Remember that the next time someone suggests moving into this territory. As police lights began to color the horizon, Wade's team prepared to fade away. They'd done what they came to do, not just defend a farm, but send a message that would echo through cartel ranks for years to come. Dawn was breaking over the Montana mountains, revealing the full extent of the night's battle. Burning vehicles dotted Wade's property, their smoke mixing with the morning mist. 37 captured cartel members sat zip-tied in groups, watched over by Nash while Cyrus and Knox secured the perimeter. The fight was over, but the real work was just beginning. State Police ETA 3 minutes, Zane reported from his command post. FBI's about 20 minutes behind them. They're very interested in our guests. Wade surveyed his farm, calculating damages with a tactical eye. The barn was scorched but standing. Its reinforced structure had done its job. The house had taken heavy fire but remained structurally sound. His defensive positions, carefully built over years, had proven their worth. "Sir," Nash called out, kneeling beside El Fantasma. "He's stabilized, but he'll need a hospital eventually." The cartel boss looked up at Wade, his arrogance replaced by something closer to respect. "You could have killed us all." "Wasn't the point," Wade replied, checking the zip ties. "Dead men don't carry messages. You're going to tell every cartel from here to Sinaloa what happened tonight." Police sirens echoed through the valley. Wade turned to his team. "Knox, Cyrus, fade back. No need to complicate things with extra questions. Nash, you're our medic handling prisoners. Zane, wipe everything sensitive. I'll handle the locals." Sheriff Cooper's convoy arrived first, 4 patrol cars and 2 tactical units. The sheriff stepped out, his face a mixture of shock and awe as he surveyed the battlefield. "Jesus Christ, Wade," Cooper breathed. "When we got reports of explosions and gunfire, what happened here?" "Had some uninvited guests," Wade replied calmly. "They didn't take rejection well." Cooper walked the perimeter, taking in the disabled vehicles, the captured cartel members, the precision damage to specific targets. This wasn't just a firefight. This was something else. "They came looking for an easy target," Wade explained. "Found something else instead. Your FBI friends will be interested in this bunch. They're part of the group that's been terrorizing the valley." "And the ones we couldn't touch because we could never prove anything?" Cooper's eyes narrowed. "Looks like you proved plenty." Nash approached, his medical kit in hand. "Sheriff, got some wounded here that need attention. Nothing critical, but they should see a hospital." Cooper keyed his radio, calling for ambulances. His deputies began processing the scene, their expressions a mix of professional duty and barely concealed amazement. Every cartel member was alive, injured in precise, non-lethal ways that spoke of extraordinary skill. "Your guests have been busy," Cooper noted, examining ID cards and weapons. Mexican Special Forces gear, high-end communications equipment, military-grade weapons. This is bigger than we thought. "Check the barn," Wade suggested. "Found some interesting paperwork. Might help with your other investigations." Zane had planted the intelligence carefully, documents linking the cartel to local crimes, property seizures, and accidents that had plagued the valley. Enough evidence to unravel their entire operation. El Fantasma watched the law enforcement activity with cold eyes. "This changes nothing. The cartel will do exactly what we tell them," Wade cut him off. "Because if they don't, next time we won't be so gentle. Imagine what we could do if we actually wanted to kill people." FBI vehicles began arriving, serious-looking agents in tactical gear, evidence response teams, and senior investigators. Wade noted their approach patterns, their weapon handling. These weren't desk jockeys. They'd sent their A-team. "Mr. Thorne?" A female agent approached, her badge identifying her as Special Agent Sarah Martinez. "We're going to need a statement about what happened here." "Of course," Wade replied. "Though it's pretty simple. They came to take my farm. I defended my property." Martinez's eyes swept the battlefield. With military precision,
Multiple disabled vehicles, wounded suspects showing consistent non-lethal injury patterns, and enough evidence to take down their entire regional operation. That's quite a night's work for one farmer. Grew up hunting? Wade shrugged. Got lucky.
Lucky? Martinez raised an eyebrow. We've been building a case against these people for months. Couldn't get near them. Then in one night, you not only defeat their entire assault force, but hand us actionable intelligence on a silver platter.
Sometimes things just work out.
The agent clearly didn't buy it, but she was professional enough not to push. We'll need to process the scene. Forensics, photographs, witness statements. You understand. Take all the time you need, Wade replied. Just watch the north field. Got some unstable ground there after all the excitement.
Martinez nodded, recognizing the warning for what it was. Some evidence wouldn't be making it into official reports. Some questions were better left unasked.
As law enforcement processed the scene, Wade's hidden team watched from concealed positions. They'd fought in places that didn't exist, conducted operations that would never see paperwork. This was no different.
Quite a mess you've made, Sheriff Cooper said, rejoining Wade. But I've got to ask, you sure this is the end of it?
Wade watched El Fantasma being loaded into an ambulance, surrounded by FBI agents. They're businessmen, Sheriff. Tonight showed them that pushing into this valley is bad business. Very bad business.
And if they're slow learners? Then they'll find out why some old soldiers never really retire.
Nash approached with a medical kit, maintaining his cover as a local paramedic. Property's clear, so, Mr. Thorne, no unexpected surprises for the evidence teams.
Wade nodded, watching the sun climb higher over his damaged but undefeated farm. The cartel had brought their best: former special forces, professional killers, military hardware. They'd had every advantage in numbers and firepower, but they'd learned the hard way that some battles aren't won by strength alone.
You know, Cooper mused, watching his deputies photograph disabled vehicles. Folks in town always wondered about you. Quiet farmer who kept to himself, but something about you seemed different. Just a man protecting his home, Wade replied. But they both knew it was more than that. This night had sent a message that would echo through criminal organizations across the continent. Some lines you don't cross, some people you don't threaten.
The valley would be safer now. The cartel had learned their lesson the hard way, and Wade's team had reminded themselves that their skills hadn't faded with time. They'd shown that sometimes the most dangerous predators are the ones that don't look threatening at all. By late afternoon, the law enforcement presence had thinned to a handful of FBI evidence teams. Wade's farm bore the scars of battle, scorched earth, bullet holes, and debris scattered across his land. But to his experienced eye, the damage told a different story. One of precision over power, of skill over brutality. Main evidence sweep is done, Knox reported via secure channel from his observation post. They didn't find anything we didn't want them to find.
Wade stood on his porch, sipping coffee while watching the last FBI vehicle disappear down his drive. Zane, what's the chatter like?
Cartel frequencies are dead quiet, Zane replied from his hidden command post. But intercepted police bands are lighting up. Seems our friends from last night weren't the only ones getting rounded up. State police are hitting cartel properties all across the valley. Cyrus emerged from the tree line, looking satisfied. Cleaned up the last of the special surprises. Ground's clear for normal farming again, though you might want to wait on planting anything in the south field. Got a few spots that need to settle.
Nash joined them, his medical kit packed away. Final casualty report: 37 cartel members captured, all with non-lethal injuries. Precise work, even by our standards.
They came expecting to fight farmers, Wade observed. Found out what it means to face professionals instead.
Sarah Bennett's truck appeared on the road, approaching cautiously. Wade nodded to his team. Time to maintain appearances. They faded back into their positions as Sarah pulled up.
Wade, she called out, jumping from her truck. The whole town's talking about what happened. They're saying you fought off the entire cartel by yourself.
Wade smiled slightly.
Stories get exaggerated. Just defended my property, that's all.
Don't give me that. Sarah's eyes were sharp. I heard the explosions, saw the gunfire. My brother's on the state police tactical team. He said this was military-grade resistance. Professional work.
Sometimes farmers know more than people expect, Wade replied carefully. Coffee? Inside the farmhouse, Sarah took in the bullet holes in the walls, the precise pattern of damage. The cartel's pulling out, not just here. They're abandoning properties all across the valley, running scared. Good business decision on their part. This wasn't just about your farm, was it? Sarah asked. This was about the whole valley. Wade considered his response. Let's just say some people needed to learn that not all territories are worth taking. Knox's voice crackled in Wade's concealed earpiece. Vehicle approaching. Black SUV, government plates. Looks like our friends from Langley want a word.
Sarah, Wade said gently, might want to head home. Got some more official visitors coming, and fewer witnesses make for easier conversations.
After Sarah left, a CIA operative named Phillips arrived. He was smooth, professional, and very interested in last night's events. Quite an operation, Phillips observed, declining coffee.
Reminds me of something I read about once. Classified file from Kandahar. Team of operators who specialized in making problems disappear without leaving evidence.
Sounds like an interesting read, Wade replied neutrally. Thing is, Phillips continued, that team officially doesn't exist. Just like what happened here last night officially won't exist. At least not the way local law enforcement thinks it did.
Appreciate the professional courtesy.
Phillips nodded. Just wanted to make sure we're on the same page. Oh, and pass along a message. Your old friend Colonel Hayes says the perimeter you set up reminds him of Serbia.
Wade's expression didn't change, but inwardly he smiled. Some old debts were being paid, some old favors called in. The valley would be safer for it.
After Phillips left, Wade's team regrouped in the barn. The time had come for decisions about the future.
Place will need rebuilding, Cyrus noted, examining blast damage. Could help with that. Got some ideas for improvements.
Cartel's running, Zane added, but they might not run forever. Might be worth maintaining a presence here.
Knox cleaned his rifle methodically. Been thinking about retiring anyway. Montana's got good shooting ranges. Could use a clinic in the area, Nash mused. Local doctors getting old. Wade looked at his team, men who'd fought beside him across the world, who'd come running at his call without hesitation. You don't have to do this.
Way I see it, Knox replied. We spent our lives fighting in other people's countries. Maybe it's time we defended something closer to home.
The decision was made without further discussion. The valley had gained more than just its freedom from the cartel. It had gained guardians with very particular skills. What about El Fantasma? Cyrus asked. He'll talk eventually. Let him, Wade shrugged. By the time he does, everything he knows will be outdated. Besides, who'd believe him? A cartel boss claiming he was defeated by a team of retired Delta operators? Speaking of which, Zane checked his phone. Got word from our friends in federal custody. Our message is spreading. 3 other cartels have already pulled back operations from neighboring counties. Seems nobody wants to risk running into the ghosts of Montana. Wade walked his property one last time as the sun set. The damage would be repaired, the signs of battle would fade, but something fundamental had changed. The valley had been marked, not as an easy target, but as a place where shadows fought back, where threats were met with precision and skill instead of brute force.
Quite a change from retirement, Nash observed, joining him. Going to miss the quiet life?
Who says it has to change? Wade replied. Farm still needs running. Land still needs tending. We just might have some extra activities on the side.
The team shared a knowing look. They'd spent their lives in the shadows, fighting battles most would never know about. Now they had a chance to use those skills for something more personal, protecting a home, a community, a way of life. Atlas padded up, alert as ever. The German Shepherd had proven his worth during the battle, warning of flanking movements,
keeping prisoners in line. Now he stood ready, as if knowing this wasn't the end, but a new beginning. "You know," Cyrus said thoughtfully, "those cartel properties they're abandoning might be worth looking into at the auction. Good tactical positions." Wade smiled. The soldier in him appreciated the strategy. Controlling key terrain, establishing a security perimeter around the valley. The farmer in him liked the idea of keeping good land in the right hands. "One thing's for sure," Knox added, his sniper's eyes scanning the horizon. "Nobody's going to look at this valley the same way again. Sometimes the best deterrent is the unknown. The possibility that behind every farmer, every rancher, might be something more dangerous than they appear." The Montana sunset painted the sky in shades of purple and gold, the same colors it had shown 24 hours ago when the cartel had thought they were attacking a simple farmer. They'd learned their lesson the hard way. Some wolves don't need to bare their teeth to be deadly. Some warriors don't need uniforms to be lethal. And some valleys are protected by more than just mountains. A week after the battle, Ironwood Valley began showing subtle signs of change. The Henderson place, previously occupied by cartel forces, was being surveyed by Knox, his trained eye seeing more than just abandoned buildings. Wade watched his old friend walking the property, marking sight lines and defensive positions with the same precision he'd once used in combat zones. "Ridge overlooks 3 major access roads," Knox reported later that evening in Wade's rebuilt barn. "Clear views for 2 miles in every direction. Previous owners had to leave in a hurry. Left file cabinets full of cartel documentation." Cyrus looked up from his blueprints of the valley. "County auctions next week. Most of these properties will go cheap. Cartel's shell companies are desperate to unload them." "Amazing what happens when criminals lose their nerve," Wade observed, studying the valley map they'd spread across his workbench. Red marks indicated former cartel properties, each one strategically valuable. Sarah Bennett's truck appeared on the security cameras, approaching Wade's farm. They'd known this conversation was coming. She was too smart to keep buying the lucky farmer story forever. "Maintain cover," Wade ordered. His team dispersed smoothly, becoming simple farmhands and visiting friends as Sarah pulled up. "Still fixing bullet holes?" she called out, climbing down from her truck. Her eyes took in the repairs, noting the professional quality of the work. "Most of them," Wade replied. "Coffee's fresh if you want some." Inside, Sarah studied Wade's face carefully. "Town meeting yesterday was interesting. Lots of properties coming up for auction. Some people are nervous about who might buy them." "Heard your brother's department cleared them all?" Wade said, pouring coffee. "No more cartel presence." "That's not what worries them." Sarah leaned forward. "Wade, I need to know what really happened here that night. And don't tell me it was just lucky shooting." Wade considered his response. Sarah had proven trustworthy, and in a small community, some truths couldn't stay hidden forever. "What do you think happened?" "I think," she said slowly, "that the cartel didn't just run into a farmer. I think they ran into someone who knew exactly how to fight them. Someone with training, experience." Through his window, Wade watched Knox and Cyrus discussing property lines, their movements still carrying the unconscious precision of trained operators. Sometimes people aren't what they seem. Sometimes that's a good thing. "The others," Sarah nodded toward the men outside. "They're not just friends helping with repairs, are they?" "Does it matter?" Sarah's expression softened. "The valley's changing, Wade. People feel safer, like something's watching over them, protecting them." "Good land's worth protecting." A helicopter passed overhead. National Guard running surveillance on cartel movement near the Canadian border. But Wade knew they were really checking on something else. After the battle, certain agencies had taken a renewed interest in the valley's security. "Martinez stopped by the diner yesterday," Sarah mentioned casually. "That FBI agent? She was asking questions about you, about your background." "Agent Martinez is good at her job," Wade acknowledged. "She knows some stories are better left uninvestigated." Nash's truck pulled up, loaded with medical supplies. His cover as the Valley's new doctor was already established. The old clinic needed someone younger, and his combat medical experience translated well to rural healthcare. More new people moving in, Sarah noted. That retired Army sniper bought the Wilson place. Combat medic taking over Doc Peterson's clinic. Even heard rumors about a security consultant looking at the old radio station. Wade kept his expression neutral, but inwardly he smiled. His team was integrating perfectly, establishing their roles while maintaining tactical positions throughout the valley. Change isn't always bad, he said finally. Sometimes it's exactly what a place needs. Sarah studied him for a long moment. The cartel wasn't your first fight, was it? Any of you? Let's just say we've had practice. A truck appeared on the road, Zane returning from installing communications equipment across the valley. In reality, he was creating a surveillance network that would make future threats think twice about moving in. You're building something here, Sarah realized. Not just repairing damage, you're turning the whole valley into a community, Wade finished. One that can protect itself. The way you protected it that night?
Sometimes the best protection is knowing you don't need to fight at all. Reputation can be stronger than bullets.
Sarah nodded slowly, understanding dawning in her eyes. That's why you're letting people figure it out gradually. The rumors, the speculation, it's all part of it, isn't it? Smart woman, Wade smiled. Amazing how criminals avoid places where they might find more than they bargained for. Knox entered, his manner professional despite playing the role of a simple farmhand. Perimeter checks done, said Wade. Everything's quiet. Sarah caught the slip, the instinctive sir that spoke of military discipline. Her expression showed not surprise, but confirmation of suspicions. Your secret's safe, she said quietly. Though I don't think it's much of a secret anymore. Not to the people who matter. Appreciate that, Wade replied. Valley's going to need people who understand discretion, and people who can spot trouble before it arrives. Like I spotted that cartel scout last week? Sarah's revelation caused both men to focus sharply on her. Don't worry, Cyrus handled it. Very professionally, I might add. Scout won't be reporting back to anyone. Wade exchanged looks with Knox. They'd chosen correctly. Sarah wasn't just observant, she was already part of the Valley's new security network. Might be time we had a longer conversation, Wade suggested, about the Valley's future, about how people like you, people who care about this land, can help protect it. Already having those conversations, Sarah smiled. Why do you think I really came here today? Community's organizing, Wade. Thanks to you and your friends, we're learning to watch out for each other, to spot things that don't belong. Outside, the Montana sun was setting behind the mountains that had watched over the valley for millennia. Those same mountains had witnessed the cartel's defeat, and now they would witness something new, the transformation of a vulnerable community into one that could defend itself. Times are changing, Wade acknowledged. Valley's changing with them. For the better, Sarah assured him. Thanks to some old soldiers who decided to keep fighting, just in a different way. As Sarah drove away, Wade's team reassembled in the barn. Their cover identities were taking root, their positions throughout the valley nearly secured. Soon, the transformation would be complete. She's sharp, Knox observed. Could be useful. Already is, Wade replied. Valley's getting exactly what it needs. People who pay attention, who understand the importance of security. Speaking of security, Cyrus interjected, got some interesting plans for those other properties. Ways to make the whole valley an early warning system. Wade nodded, studying their map again. The cartel had chosen this valley for its strategic value. Now those same strategic features would serve a different purpose, protecting the community they'd tried to destroy. The night settled over the farm, peaceful in a way it hadn't been before the battle. Sometimes, Wade reflected, the best victories aren't the ones you win with violence, but the ones that prevent violence from ever returning. 2 weeks after the battle, Knox stood at his newly acquired property, the former Wilson place, watching locals arrive for what they thought was just a shooting club meeting. The converted barn had become a state-of-the-art training facility, though most wouldn't recognize it as such. To them, it was just a place where an ex-military man taught firearms safety. "Remember?" Knox addressed the gathered farmers and ranchers. "Accuracy before speed. Combat shooting's different from hunting. You need to be prepared for targets that shoot back." Wade observed from the sidelines, noting how naturally Knox slipped advanced tactical training into basic shooting lessons. These weren't soldiers they were training. They were community members learning to protect themselves, but the principles remained the same. "Your property's your responsibility," Knox continued. "Knowing how to defend it isn't just about guns. It's about awareness, observation, understanding your terrain." Sarah Bennett was among the students, her natural aptitude showing. She'd already spotted 3 of the hidden observation posts Wade's team had established around the valley. More importantly, she'd kept that knowledge to herself. Across the valley, Nash's clinic had become operational. His combat medical experience translated perfectly to rural healthcare, but he was doing more than just treating patients. Each visitor was carefully evaluated, not just for medical issues, but for their potential as either ally or threat. "Interesting morning," Nash reported later at Wade's farm. "Had a visitor. Claimed to be a traveling salesman, but his hands told a different story. Calluses consistent with weapons training." "Cartel scout?" Wade asked, checking security feeds. "Probably. Gave him something to help with his headache. Minor sedative. Zane's tracking his movements now. Let's see where he reports back to." Cyrus emerged from his workshop, where he'd been modifying farming equipment. To most eyes, they looked like normal tractors and harvesters. Few would notice the reinforced frames, the bulletproof glass, the hidden compartments. "Finished the modifications on the Bennett place," Cyrus reported. "Sarah's barn could withstand a direct mortar hit now. Not that anyone would notice without looking real close." Wade nodded approvingly. The valley's transformation was proceeding exactly as planned. Subtle changes that added up to an impregnable defensive network. "Local sheriff's been asking questions," Zane called from his communications center, disguised as a ham radio enthusiast setup. "Nothing aggressive, just curious about all the new people moving in." "Let him be curious," Wade replied. "Better he thinks he's uncovering things on his own, makes him feel involved." A truck approached, one of the local ranchers, Bill Henderson, looking troubled. Wade recognized the expression. More people were starting to notice changes in the valley, trying to make sense of them. "Wade," Henderson called out, climbing down from his truck. "Got a minute? Something happened last night that, well, it's strange." Wade led him to the porch, where Atlas lay alert but relaxed. "What's on your mind, Bill?" "Had some visitors after dark. 3 vehicles. Didn't recognize them. They stopped at my gate. Looked like they were about to cause trouble." Henderson paused, collecting his thoughts. Then the strangest thing happened. Got a call from Knox up at the old Wilson place. Said he was doing some night shooting practice, might get noisy. Next thing I know, shots ring out from somewhere in the hills. Visitors couldn't leave fast enough. Wade kept his expression neutral, but he knew exactly what had happened. Knox had been on overwatch as usual. The visitors had likely been cartel scouts testing the valley's new defenses. "Lot of strange things happening lately," Henderson continued. "New people moving in, all of them military types. Security cameras going up on properties. Even got folks talking about forming a community watch program." "Times are changing," Wade observed. "After what happened with the cartel, people are being more careful." Henderson nodded slowly. "Thing is, Wade, it doesn't feel threatening. Feels organized, like someone's looking out for all of us." "Communities coming together," Wade replied carefully. "Looking out for each other, that's all." But Henderson was sharper than most gave him credit for. "Sarah Bennett says you're the one we should thank. Says what you did that night standing up to the cartel. It changed things." "Sarah talks too much." "Sarah's usually right." Henderson straightened up. "Listen, some of us have been talking. We want to help. Whatever you and your friends are doing to protect this valley, we want to be part of it." Wade studied the rancher carefully. Henderson had fought in Vietnam, though he rarely spoke of it. He'd know enough to recognize a military operation when he saw one.
Might be we could use some extra eyes and ears, Wade acknowledged. People who know the land, know what belongs and what doesn't.
Already got a network started, Henderson revealed. Ranchers, farmers, even some of the town folks. We notice things. Been keeping track of strangers passing through, unusual activity. Figure that might be useful to whoever might need to know. Wade allowed himself a small smile. The valley's residents weren't just accepting protection, they were becoming active participants in their own defense. Stop by Knox's place tomorrow, Wade suggested. He's running some special training sessions. Might be educational. Later, after Henderson left, Wade's team gathered to discuss this development. The valley's transformation was happening faster than expected, driven by the residents themselves.
They're organizing on their own, Knox noted approvingly. Creating their own intelligence network. Better than we planned, Zane added. Local knowledge combined with our expertise. Valley's becoming a hard target without looking like one.
Cyrus spread out his latest blueprints. Got requests from 3 more properties for structural improvements. They're figuring out what we can offer, even if they don't know exactly who we are.
Think it's time we expanded the operation? Nash asked. More training? More preparation?
Wade considered the question carefully. The valley's residents were proving themselves worthy of trust, eager to protect their community. But operational security remained crucial. We expand carefully, he decided. Keep everything compartmentalized. Let them think they're just being good neighbors, watching out for each other. The less they know about our full capabilities, the better. The team nodded in agreement. They'd fought wars in foreign lands, conducted operations in the world's darkest corners. Now they were fighting a different kind of battle, transforming an entire community into something uniquely defensible while maintaining the appearance of normal rural life. One more thing, Zane reported. Intercepted some cartel communications. Word's spreading about this valley. They're calling it El Valle de los Fantasmas, the Valley of Ghosts. Say it's cursed, protected by spirits that hunt cartel members.
Wade smiled grimly. Sometimes the best defense wasn't just physical preparation, but reputation. Let them believe in ghosts. The reality, highly trained operators hidden among simple farmers, was far more dangerous than any supernatural threat.
The first test of the valley's new defenses came on a quiet Tuesday evening. Bill Henderson's grandson, Tommy, was the first to spot them. 3 unmarked SUVs moving slowly along the back roads, stopping occasionally to photograph properties. The 16-year-old did exactly what Knox had trained him to do. Nothing obvious. Just continued mending fences while using his phone to send a predetermined text message. Within minutes, the valley's warning network activated. Farmers found reasons to be in their fields, checking irrigation systems while noting vehicle descriptions and occupant numbers. Sarah Bennett coincidentally drove past in her truck, her dashcam capturing license plates. Every movement was casual, natural. Nothing to alert the observers that they'd been compromised. 4 men in the lead vehicle, Zane reported from his command center, monitoring the civilian reports flooding in. Armed, trying to hide it. Second vehicle has camera equipment. Third's hanging back, probable security detail. Wade watched the security feeds, impressed by the community's response. No one was playing hero. No one was confronting the intruders. They were gathering intelligence exactly as trained.
Got confirmation, Nash called in. Match 2 of them to cartel medical records. Low-level enforcers from the Tijuana operation. They're testing our defenses, seeing if the stories are true.
Knox's voice crackled over the secure channel. Got them in my scope. Want me to send a message? Not yet, Wade replied. Let's see how our neighbors handle this.
The SUVs turned down a side road, approaching one of the formerly cartel-owned properties. They were meeting the valley's first prepared response, though they wouldn't recognize it as such. Bill Henderson and 3 other ranchers were there, seemingly having a casual conversation by their trucks. Their positioning was perfect, blocking the road without appearing to, creating a natural choke point. "Afternoon," Henderson called out as the SUV stopped. "You folks look lost." The lead vehicle's window rolled down, revealing a man trying hard to look like a tourist. "Just admiring the properties? Beautiful valley you have here?" "Sure is," Henderson agreed amiably. "Shame about all the problems, though." The cartel scout tried to hide his interest. "Problems?" "Oh yeah. Government testing ground back in the 80s. Soil's all contaminated. Can't grow anything safely. That's why properties are so cheap. Can't farm them, can't sell them." Wade smiled at the cover story they'd prepared. Cyrus had even planted fake warning signs, partially hidden by overgrowth, just visible enough to be discovered by nosy visitors. The cartel scouts exchanged uncertain looks. Their intelligence hadn't mentioned this. Behind them, Sarah Bennett pulled up in her truck, blocking their retreat without seeming to. "Whole valley's under EPA supervision," she added helpfully. "Had some nasty incidents last year. Three-headed calf, mutated crops. Had to burn everything." The scouts' discomfort was visible now. They'd come looking for signs of military presence, prepared for armed resistance. Instead, they were facing friendly locals and an environmental hazard story that would make the land worthless for cartel operations. "Think we took a wrong turn," the lead scout said quickly. "Thanks for the warning." They turned around awkwardly, trying to maintain dignity while retreating. As they passed Sarah's truck, she gave them a friendly wave, snapping crystal-clear photos with her hidden camera. "Little too much with the three-headed calf," Wade commented over the radio. "Got them moving, didn't it?" Sarah replied cheerfully. The community watched the SUVs leave, maintaining their casual poses while tracking every movement. The scouts never realized they'd triggered motion sensors, cameras, and a full tactical response team hidden in the tree line. Later that evening, Wade's team gathered to review the incident. The civilians had performed perfectly, showing none of their training while executing a coordinated intelligence gathering operation. "Environmental contamination story was clever," Cyrus noted. "Hard to verify, perfect excuse for cheap land, and no cartel's going to risk toxic soil for their operations." "Henderson's group handled the interdiction well," Knox added. "Natural blocking positions, multiple angles of observation. They're learning." Zane pulled up the surveillance footage. Facial recognition confirmed all 6 cartel members. They're transportation specialists, usually scout new smuggling routes. Betting they write this valley off completely.
Best part is they think they found the answer themselves, Nash observed. No signs of military presence, no obvious security, just locals warning them about bad land.
Wade studied the footage, proud of how far the community had come. In just a few weeks, they'd transformed from victims into a coordinated defense network. The cartel scouts had expected to find either an unprotected valley or obvious military presence. Instead, they'd found something much more effective. A prepared community that didn't appear prepared at all.
"Think they'll try again?"
Sarah asked, joining them after ensuring she wasn't followed. "Different group probably will," Wade replied. "But each time they'll find something that makes the valley unattractive. Environmental issues, zoning problems, archaeological sites that prevent development. Better to have them leave convinced the land is worthless than suspicious it's defended." Speaking of defended, Knox interjected. "Thompson's boy showed real promise today. Spotted their tail car when it split off. Kept eyes on it without being obvious. Might be worth bringing him into the advanced training group." The valley was evolving faster than they'd planned, developing layers of defense that went beyond simple security. They weren't just training people to protect themselves. They were creating a community that could identify threats, gather intelligence, and respond appropriately without ever appearing militant. "Got something else," Zane reported, checking his monitors. "Cartel chatter picked up after our visitors left. They're spreading the contamination story, adding their own details too, claiming their men got sick just driving through the valley. Stories growing legs." "Perfect," Wade nodded. "Let them build our cover for us. Every wild story makes them less likely to look closer at what's really here." Sarah studied the tactical display, showing the day's operation in detail. "You know, when you first started training us, I thought it was just about protecting ourselves. But this is different, isn't it? We're not just defending the valley, we're making it invisible to the wrong kind of attention.
Best defense isn't always a fence or a gun, Wade explained. Sometimes it's convincing people there's nothing worth taking, nothing worth investigating. The team dispersed to their positions, maintaining the constant vigilance that had become routine. The valley's transformation was progressing exactly as planned, not into an armed camp, but into something far more sophisticated, a community that could defend itself while appearing completely innocuous. One thing's certain, Nash remarked as they watched the sunset. No one's going to look at this valley the same way again, not after today. Wade nodded, knowing the real victory wasn't in driving off the scouts, but in how naturally the community had responded. They weren't soldiers, would never be soldiers, but they'd become something just as effective. Citizens who knew how to protect their home without ever appearing threatening. The valley had faced its first test and passed with flying colors. The next test would be harder, but they'd be ready. After all, the best defenses are the ones your enemies never realize they're facing. Word of the valley's resistance spread through criminal networks like wildfire, but not in the way anyone expected. Instead of tales of armed confrontation, the stories focused on mysterious illnesses, contaminated land, and inexplicable equipment failures. Each telling grew more elaborate, creating a mythology that served Wade's team better than any direct action could have. Latest rumor says 3 cartel scouts went blind just driving through, Zane reported during their morning briefing. Another claims crops planted with stolen money wither and die. My favorite is the one about ghostly soldiers appearing in thermal scopes. Knox cleaned his rifle, smiling slightly. Amazing what happens when you let people's imaginations do the work for you. But not all attention was supernatural. Sheriff Cooper arrived at Wade's farm, his expression troubled. The local law enforcement had been supportive but distant until now. Understanding some questions were better left unasked. Got some folks from the DEA asking questions, Cooper said without preamble. They're curious why every criminal organization in the region suddenly decided our valley's radioactive. Wade continued repairing his tractor, maintaining his farmer's persona. Heard some environmental stories going around. Bad soil or something. Wade, Cooper sighed. I've been in law enforcement 30 years. I know a coordinated defense operation when I see one. Just like I know those hunting accidents that keep happening to cartel scouts aren't accidents. Sounds complicated, Wade replied mildly. Must keep you busy. That's just it. It doesn't. Valley's gone from a major crime problem to practically nothing. No drugs, no violence, no organized crime. It's like someone dropped a blank spot on the map. Atlas patted over, greeting Cooper with a friendly but watchful attitude. The sheriff scratched the dog's ears, choosing his next words carefully. DEA's not the only ones interested. FBI's got analysts trying to figure out why this valley suddenly became invisible to criminal activity. They're finding things that don't add up. Such as?
New residents with very convenient backgrounds. Communication equipment that's a bit too sophisticated for farmers. Training programs that look a lot like military counterinsurgency tactics.
Wade set down his wrench, finally giving Cooper his full attention. Sounds like they're overthinking things. Sometimes a community just decides to protect itself.
By implementing professional-grade surveillance? By running coordinated responses to threats? By spreading disinformation that would make intelligence agencies proud?
Before Wade could respond, Sarah's truck roared up the drive. Her arrival wasn't a coincidence. She monitored all approaches to Wade's farm, providing early warning of official visitors. Sheriff? She called out cheerfully. Here for the community watch meeting? Cooper turned, surprised. Community watch?
Oh yes, Sarah continued smoothly. Wade's been helping us organize, teaching basic security awareness, emergency response, that sort of thing. After all that cartel trouble, people wanted to be more prepared.
It was a perfect cover story. Technically true while revealing nothing about the full scope of their operations. Sarah had learned well.
That's right, Wade added. Amazing what farmers can do when they work together. Share information, watch out for each other. Nothing complicated about it.
Cooper looked between them, understanding the message.
The valley's transformation could be explained through official channels without revealing its true nature.
Community watch program, he mused. That would explain a lot to folks asking questions, especially if it was properly documented, had regular meetings, kept records.
Probably should, Wade agreed. Might even be good to have law enforcement oversight, keep everything official. The sheriff nodded slowly. Might be I could help with that. Better to have everything above board properly recorded. Could even get some state funding for training programs.
Sarah beamed. That's a wonderful idea. We should schedule a proper meeting. Get everyone involved.
After Cooper left, Wade's team emerged from their positions. They'd been watching the entire conversation, ready to respond if needed.
Smooth, Knox commented. Give them the official story that explains just enough.
Sheriff's sharper than he lets on, Nash observed. He's offering to help maintain our cover. Wade studied the valley through his window. The community's transformation had reached a critical point. Too effective to hide completely, too important to expose fully. We adapt, he decided. Let them see what they need to see. Community Watch program gives us legitimate cover for training, communications, surveillance.
What about the federal attention? Cyrus asked.
Let them look, Wade replied. They'll find exactly what we want them to find. A well-organized community protection program. Nothing more.
Zane's monitoring equipment chirped, drawing their attention. Got movement on the northern border. 3 vehicles, similar pattern to last week's scouts.
Alert the network, Wade ordered. Let's show the sheriff how a proper community watch program handles unwanted visitors.
The response was immediate but subtle. Farmers found reasons to work in their fields, positions offering clear observation of the approaching vehicles. The local hunting club, now trained by Knox in advanced marksmanship, began a scheduled target practice session, the shots carrying clearly across the valley.
Contact team in position,
Sarah reported. She'd taken charge of coordinating the civilian response groups.
Thompson's setting up the road maintenance delay.
Right on cue, a municipal truck began slow repair work on the main access road, naturally blocking the most direct route into the valley. The suspicious vehicles would be forced to detour past 3 different observation posts. Remember, Wade transmitted to the civilian network, we're just concerned citizens today. Notice everything, react to nothing. The valley's defensive network had evolved beyond simple security into something more sophisticated, a community that could identify, track, and deter threats while maintaining perfect deniability. Every action had a legitimate explanation. Every response could be officially documented.
You know, Nash said thoughtfully, watching the operation unfold, we spent years in the shadows, conducting operations nobody could know about. Now we're hiding in plain sight, running a defense network that officially doesn't exist.
Best disguise is the truth, Wade replied. We are helping the community protect itself. Everything else is just details they don't need to know. The sun climbed higher over the Montana mountains, watching as farmers went about their daily work while covertly monitoring potential threats. The valley had become something unique, not a military installation, not a civilian community, but a hybrid that combined the best aspects of both. And if federal agencies wanted to investigate, let them. They'd find nothing but a remarkably well-organized community watch program. The rest, like the ghostly soldiers and thermal scopes, would remain the subject of rumors and speculation. Sometimes, Wade reflected, the best defense isn't in what people see, but in what they think they see. The Community Watch program's first official meeting drew more attention than anyone expected. 2 FBI agents sat in the back of the town hall, trying to look inconspicuous. A DEA analyst took notes near the front. Even the state police had sent an observer. Wade watched them all while maintaining his role as a simple farmer helping organize his neighbors. Basic security awareness, he explained to the gathered crowd. Knowing who belongs in our valley and who doesn't. Recognizing suspicious behavior. Nothing complicated. Knox, playing his part as the retired Army sniper running the local shooting club, outlined their civilian training program. Every word was carefully chosen to sound ordinary, while conveying deeper meaning to those in the know. Proper radio procedures are essential, he emphasized.
Clear communication can prevent misunderstandings.
Sarah managed the sign-up sheet, noting how the federal agents perked up at certain names. They were building profiles, trying to understand the valley's transformation from crime hotspot to impenetrable territory.
Movement at the north checkpoint. Zane's voice whispered in Wade's concealed earpiece. 2 SUVs. Same pattern as the Tijuana group.
Wade kept his expression neutral, continuing his presentation while the valley's real security network activated. Through the window, he watched farmers casually moving their equipment into blocking positions, creating natural barriers that would force the visitors to take predictable routes. Community awareness means working together, Wade told his audience, every word carrying double meaning. Looking out for each other, being ready to respond to any situation. The FBI agents exchanged glances when 3 local trucks suddenly departed, driven by farmers who'd received the silent alert. To most observers, it looked like people leaving a boring meeting. In reality, they were moving to observation posts.
Got eyes on the vehicles, Sarah reported quietly, having stepped outside to take a phone call. Definitely Cartel, but different group. Colombian markings.
Wade continued his presentation, discussing routine neighborhood watch protocols while his team coordinated a complex defensive operation. The timing wasn't coincidental. Someone had deliberately scheduled this surveillance during their public meeting.
Remember, he told the crowd, success depends on everyone doing their part. No heroes, no lone wolves. We work as a team.
The DEA analyst was scribbling furiously, probably noting how military the phrasing sounded. Let him analyze. Everything they were doing was perfectly legal, just unusually well organized. Vehicles approaching Main Street, Knox murmured into the radio. Running facial recognition now. The meeting continued, a perfect cover for the real operation happening outside. Wade discussed emergency response procedures while monitoring his team's deployment. Every word of his presentation could be quoted in official reports while serving as actual tactical instructions. When confronting suspicious activity, he explained, the goal is to observe and report. Leave intervention to proper authorities. Right on cue, Sheriff Cooper's deputies appeared, conducting routine patrol that just happened to intercept the Colombian vehicles. The cartel scouts found themselves politely but firmly escorted out of the valley, their presence noted and logged through official channels. Coordination with law enforcement is crucial, Wade emphasized to his audience. The FBI agents nodded approvingly, unaware they were watching a live demonstration of exactly how that coordination worked. After the meeting, Cooper approached Wade, his expression carefully neutral. Interesting timing with those Colombian visitors.
Timing's everything, Wade agreed quietly, especially when you're explaining to federal observers how a legitimate community watch program operates.
They bought it, Cooper confirmed. Perfect blend of civilian organization and law enforcement cooperation. Almost too perfect. Sometimes the best way to hide something is to show people exactly what they expect to see. The sheriff nodded thoughtfully. DEA's theory is that we've got an official black ops team deployed here. FBI thinks we're running a sanctioned intelligence operation. Nobody suspects we've just got farmers who are really good at working together.
Amazing what people can accomplish with proper motivation and organization.
As the federal observers departed, Wade's team regrouped at his farm. The operation had worked perfectly. Legitimate cover established, real security maintained, and potential threats deflected without raising suspicions.
Colombian cartels trying to move in, Zane reported, checking his intelligence feeds. They think the Mexican cartel's retreat means the territory's open.
Let them try, Knox replied. Environmental hazard story works just as well in Spanish as it does in English.
Sarah arrived, having followed the federal agents to ensure they actually left the valley. They're convinced they figured it out. Think we're some kind of official program they're not cleared to know about.
Best cover story is the one your targets create for themselves, Wade noted.
They'll look for complicated explanations and miss the simple truth. We're exactly what we appear to be, just better organized than they expect.
Nash joined them, returning from his clinic.
Heard something interesting today. Cartel's offering bounties for real information about the valley. getting desperate to understand why they can't get a foothold here.
Let them wonder, Wade replied. Mystery's more effective than force.
They'll waste time looking for secrets that don't exist while our real strength, community organization, and preparation stays hidden in plain sight.
The sun set over the valley, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. On the surface, nothing had changed. Farmers worked their land, ranchers tended their herds, life continued as normal.
But beneath that peaceful exterior, an invisible network of surveillance, communication, and coordination kept the community safe.
You know, Sarah observed, watching the last light fade. When you first started training us, I thought we were just learning to defend ourselves. But this is different, isn't it? We're not just protecting the valley. We're changing how people think about it. Wade nodded. The valley's transformation went beyond physical security. They'd created something unique, a community that could defend itself while appearing completely ordinary. The best defense wasn't in weapons or tactics, but in making the valley seem simultaneously worthless to criminals and boring to officials. Next phase starts tomorrow, he announced to his team. Expanding the training program, improving coordination. The federal attention means we need to be even more careful. Everything documented, everything legitimate.
Hiding in plain sight, Knox mused. Just like old times, but different. Never thought I'd be running a real operation disguised as a cover story disguised as a real operation.
Sometimes, Wade replied. The best way to keep a secret is to make sure everyone thinks they already know it. The Colombian cartel made their first serious probe on a quiet Sunday morning. Instead of obvious scouts or intimidation teams, they sent what appeared to be legitimate businessmen. 3 well-dressed individuals in a rental car, carrying briefcases full of authentic-looking development proposals.
Real estate developers, Sarah reported from the diner, where she'd casually overheard their conversation, claiming they want to build a resort complex. Very convincing cover.
Wade watched through his security feeds as the developers made their way through the valley, meeting with property owners. Their approach was sophisticated. Legitimate-looking contracts, promises of economic development, careful avoidance of any threatening behavior. They're learning, Knox observed from his observation post. No weapons, no thugs, no obvious criminal connection, just business proposals that happen to be backed by cartel money.
Background checks complete, Zane called in. Shell companies lead back to Colombian front organizations. They're trying to buy the valley legally.
This required a different response than their usual tactics. Wade gathered his core team while the community network tracked the visitors' movements. They couldn't respond with intimidation or environmental hazard stories. This threat needed a more subtle approach. Time to activate the Historical Society gambit, Wade decided. Nash, you're up. Nash, who'd established himself as an amateur historian alongside his medical practice, intercepted the developers at the local coffee shop. His enthusiasm for local history was well known and entirely genuine. "Oh, you're interested in development," he exclaimed loudly, sliding into their booth uninvited. "Have you seen the archaeological surveys? This whole valley's a protected site. Native American burial grounds, historical battlefields. We've got more preservation orders than buildable land." The developers exchanged glances. This wasn't the resistance they'd expected. Instead of scared farmers or armed opposition, they faced an excited historian pulling out maps and documentation. "Most folks don't know this," Nash continued cheerfully, "but the whole valley's under federal protection. Archaeological Resources Protection Act, National Historic Preservation Act. Can't build anything without years of surveys. Last developer spent 5 years just getting permits to add a garage." Wade, listening through Nash's concealed mic, had to admire the performance. Every document was real, every regulation genuine. They'd spent months creating this layer of their defense, making the valley appear too bureaucratically complicated for any large-scale development. "Interesting," the lead developer said carefully. "Our research didn't show any historical significance." "Oh, that's because most of it's classified," Nash replied enthusiastically. "Military testing range during World War II, you know, still finding unexploded ordnance. Had to call the bomb squad twice last month." Sarah, playing her part perfectly,
chose that moment to rush in. "Dr. Nash, they found another one in Thompson's Field. Need you to check if it's historical before they call the disposal team." The developers' interest visibly waned. Their careful plans for legitimate property acquisition were running into something worse than armed resistance, federal bureaucracy, and protected land status. "Might want to mention the Endangered Species Survey," Wade suggested through the radio. Nash seized the opportunity with relish.
And don't get me started on the spotted owls, he exclaimed. Whole valley's a protected habitat. Environmental impact studies take years. Can't even trim a tree without federal approval.
By the time Nash finished his enthusiastic explanation of environmental regulations, historical preservation requirements, and unexploded ordnance protocols, the developers were already making excuses to leave. Their legitimate approach had run straight into an impenetrable wall of bureaucratic complications.
"They're pulling out," Knox reported. "Heading for the highway. Should I arrange a farewell message?"
"No need," Wade replied. "Let them go. They'll do our work for us, warning others about the regulatory nightmare." Later, the team gathered to review the operation's success. The Colombian cartel's attempt at legitimate acquisition had been thwarted not by force or threats, but by carefully crafted legal obstacles.
"Beautiful setup," Cyrus commented. "Every document genuine, every regulation real. They can check everything Nash told them and find it's all true."
"That's the beauty of it," Zane added. "We didn't create the regulations, just made sure they apply here. No one can prove we're doing anything except following the law extremely thoroughly." Sarah arrived with updates from her network of observers. "Word's already spreading. 2 other development groups canceled their visits. Seems no one wants to deal with our regulatory issues."
"Better than guards or guns," Wade noted. "Can't fight City Hall, as they say. Or in this case, federal preservation orders."
But their success brought new challenges. Sheriff Cooper arrived, looking concerned. "Got some people from the State Historical Society asking questions. Seems someone's been filing a lot of preservation requests lately." "Natural interest in local history?" Wade replied mildly. "Amazing what you find when you start looking." Cooper sighed. "Wade, in the past month we've had environmental protection orders, historical preservation requests, endangered species surveys, and archaeological studies. Starting to feel like this valley's wrapped in more red tape than the Pentagon."
"Good fences make good neighbors," Wade smiled. "Sometimes those fences are made of paperwork."
The sheriff studied him for a moment. "You know, when you first started organizing the community watch, I thought you were just teaching basic security. But this is something else. You're not just protecting the valley, you're making it impossible to take over." "Everyone has their skills," Wade acknowledged. "Some folks are good at spotting trouble. Others know their way around federal regulations. Put it all together, you get a community that can protect itself without ever looking threatening."
After Cooper left, the team conducted their evening briefing. The Colombian cartel's attempt at legitimate acquisition had been stopped, but they knew it wouldn't be the last challenge.
"They'll try again," Knox predicted. "Different approach next time." "Let them," Wade replied. "Every failed attempt adds to our cover. The more legitimate businesses walk away frustrated by regulations, the more natural our protection looks." The sun set over the valley, casting long shadows across land that appeared worthless to developers, too complicated for criminals, and too boring for official investigation. But beneath that carefully crafted exterior lay a community prepared for any threat, ready to defend itself with paperwork as effectively as firepower. "You know," Sarah observed, "when you started training us, I thought we'd be learning combat skills. Never thought our best defense would be historical preservation laws." Wade smiled. In his years of military service, he'd learned that the best victories often came without firing a shot. Now he was teaching his community the same lesson. Sometimes the strongest defense isn't a wall or a weapon, but a carefully crafted reality that makes attack seem pointless. The first sign of coordinated opposition came when Zane intercepted encrypted communications between 3 different cartels. Mexican, Colombian, and Russian criminal organizations were comparing notes, sharing intelligence, and realizing that the valley's defense wasn't as simple as it appeared. They're pooling resources, Zane reported during an emergency team meeting. Starting to see patterns in our responses. The environmental hazards, the historical preservation, the bureaucratic roadblocks. They're mapping our defensive layers. Wade studied the intelligence reports, noting the sophistication of their opponent's analysis. They're treating this like a military operation now. Professional threat assessment, pattern recognition. Got movement on multiple fronts, Knox added. 3 separate development companies trying to buy land. Each one looks legitimate, but they're all backed by different cartels. They're testing our bureaucratic defenses systematically. The pressure wasn't just external. Sarah arrived with troubling news from the civilian network. We've got an infiltrator. New family moved in last month, supposedly running from debt collectors. They're asking too many questions, showing up at sensitive locations. Wade had been expecting this. Their success had made them a target, and their enemies were adapting. Time to shift strategies. We can't rely on the same defenses anymore.
The team gathered around his tactical display, watching multiple threats converge on their valley. The Criminal Alliance wasn't just probing their defenses. They were looking for patterns, weaknesses, anything that might reveal the truth behind the valley's impenetrability. Latest approach is clever, Nash reported. They're filing legal challenges to our historical preservation claims. Hired legitimate archaeologists to dispute our findings. Even got a senator's office asking questions about the military testing range story.
Environmental protection angle's getting hit too, Cyrus added. EPA's sending inspectors next week. Someone's pushing for a full survey of those contamination claims.
Wade had prepared for this, but the coordination of the attacks concerned him. Their opponents were no longer acting like criminals. They were conducting a professional intelligence operation.
Sir, Thompson's boy Tommy radioed in, his voice tense. Got 3 survey teams working the North Ridge. They've got ground-penetrating radar, looking for those Native American burial grounds we told them about. The Criminal Alliance was systematically dismantling their cover stories, using legitimate means to expose their deceptions. It was a sophisticated approach that threatened to unravel their entire defensive strategy. Time to adapt, Wade decided. Knox, start Phase 2 of the training program. Sarah, activate the secondary network. Zane, implement Communications Protocol Delta. The team moved with practiced efficiency, but the strain was showing. They'd been running this operation for months, maintaining constant vigilance while keeping up their cover identities. The pressure was taking its toll. Got another problem, Nash reported. Medical board's asking questions about my credentials. Someone's digging deep into our backgrounds. Wade had expected this too. Their covers were good. They'd had government help establishing them, but determined investigation could find inconsistencies. The Criminal Alliance was being thorough, professional, and patient. They're not just trying to break in anymore, Sarah observed. They're trying to understand how we keep them out. If they expose our methods, they expose us, Wade finished. Time to show them something new, something they won't expect. The team gathered closer as Wade outlined his plan. It was risky, different from anything they'd tried before, but their opponents had forced their hand. They needed to change the game before their carefully constructed defenses were dismantled. Instead of hiding what we are, Wade explained, we show them exactly what they're afraid of, but we do it legally, publicly, and in a way they can't counter. The plan was audacious. Instead of maintaining their cover as simple farmers with unusually good organization, they would transform the valley into something even more impenetrable. A private security testing and training facility, completely legitimate and officially sanctioned. State's been looking to establish a rural law enforcement training center, Cooper confirmed when they brought him in. With your expertise and facilities. We become exactly what they think we are, Wade nodded. But legally, openly, with full government approval. The transformation began immediately. Knox's shooting range became an official law enforcement training facility. Nash's medical practice expanded to include tactical combat care instruction. Cyrus's workshop started offering courses in rural infrastructure protection. Beautiful strategy, Sarah said, watching construction begin on the new training center.
They spent months trying to expose us as a military operation, so we become one officially. Now they can't touch us without attracting federal attention. But the criminal alliance wasn't giving up. Their infiltrators remained in place, watching, reporting, trying to find weaknesses in the Valley's new identity. The pressure continued, more subtle, but just as dangerous.
They're adapting again, Zane warned. Starting to target our supporters outside the Valley. Pressure on suppliers, investigations into business partners. They're trying to isolate us.
Wade watched the sun set over his changed valley. The farm was still there, still operational, but now it served as part of a larger operation. They'd maintained their security but lost something in the process, the simple peace they'd sought to protect. Price of success, Knox observed, cleaning his rifle after another training session. Can't hide something this effective forever. Had to become legitimate eventually. Question is, Nash added, what happens when they realize even this new identity is just another layer of defense? That we're still hiding something deeper? Wade considered this as he watched new recruits training in the Valley. They'd created something unique, a defensive system that could adapt and evolve, becoming whatever it needed to be to maintain its effectiveness. But each evolution brought new challenges, new pressures, new threats to answer. We keep adapting, he decided. Keep changing. The moment they think they understand us is the moment we become something else. That's the real defense. Not the stories or the training or the bureaucracy, but our ability to be whatever we need to be to protect this valley. The team nodded, understanding. They'd started this operation thinking they could simply hide their capabilities behind a farmer's facade. Now they were learning the true art of defense, the ability to transform while remaining essentially unchanged, to be both exactly what their enemies feared and something entirely different at the same time. The new law enforcement training center brought its own set of complications. State police instructors worked alongside Wade's team, forcing them to maintain their cover stories under professional scrutiny. Every training session became a delicate balance between showing enough expertise to be credible and hiding their true capabilities.
Got 6 different agencies requesting advanced courses, Knox reported, reviewing applications. Including some 3-letter ones we'd rather avoid. Success is becoming a liability.
Wade watched a tactical driving class navigate his modified farm roads. The instructors were legitimate law enforcement professionals, but his team had subtly altered the curriculum to hide their more advanced techniques.
Another probe on the South Ridge, Sarah radioed in. 2 men with survey equipment, but their gear's military grade. Cartel's using the legitimate activity as cover for recon.
The criminal alliance had adapted quickly to their new status, using the increased traffic to and from the training center as camouflage for their own operations. Every legitimate visitor could be a potential threat, every training session a chance for infiltration. They're getting creative, Nash observed, treating a trainee's minor injury. Had 3 different medical equipment suppliers try to tour the facility this week, all with connections to known criminal organizations. Zane's surveillance network caught another attempt at penetration. Got a professional news crew requesting interviews. Background check shows ties to cartel media operations. They're trying to map our facility through public interest stories. The pressure was constant, sophisticated, and coming from multiple directions. Wade's team found themselves running 3 operations simultaneously: the legitimate training center, their covert Valley defense network, and counter-surveillance against increasingly professional opposition. "Sir," Thompson's boy Tommy called in urgently. "Those archaeologists are back, but something's different. They've got ground-penetrating radar that's not just for show. Military surplus, could detect our underground installations." Wade moved quickly to counter this threat. "Knox, initiate training exercise Delta. Need that area too busy for detailed survey work." Within minutes, the archaeology team found their work interrupted by a tactical driving course, complete with artificial smoke and noise that would render their equipment useless. Every potential exposure was met with an immediate, seemingly legitimate response. "Getting harder to maintain the balance," Cyrus noted during their evening briefing. "Can't look too professional, or we draw attention. Can't look too amateur, or we lose credibility. Walking a tightrope here."
The Criminal Alliance's latest strategy was particularly clever. They'd started sending actual law enforcement officers to the training center, ones who'd been compromised or bought. These professionals knew what to look for and had the credentials to access sensitive areas.
Got 3 more applications from out-of-state departments, Sarah reported. Officers with spotless records but suspicious financial histories. They're trying to plant observers in our training programs.
Wade studied the situation board, noting the patterns of probe and response that had developed. Their opponents were patient, methodical, and learning from each failure. The Valley's defenses were holding, but the cost of maintaining them was rising.
New problem? Nash called in. Medical Certification Board sending inspectors. Someone filed complaints about our trauma treatment protocols. They're questioning our qualification to train tactical medicine.
The legitimate challenges were harder to counter than the criminal ones. Every official inquiry required documentation, explanation, and careful management to maintain their cover story while satisfying regulatory requirements.
Time to evolve again, Wade decided. We've been reactive, responding to their probes. Need to change the game before they find a crack in our defense.
The team gathered to hear his new strategy. They'd built layers of deception: environmental hazards, historical sites, bureaucratic obstacles, and finally, the legitimate training center. Now they needed something more.
We're going to give them what they want, Wade explained. Let them think they've found our secret. Show them exactly what they expect to see, but make it a dead end.
The plan was intricate. They would allow one of the cartel's investigative teams to discover evidence of their military background. Not the whole truth, but enough to make them think they'd solved the mystery of the Valley's defense.
Let them find some old Delta Force documentation, Wade continued. Make them think they've exposed us as retired operators running a legitimate training center. It's close enough to the truth to be believable, different enough to hide our real capabilities.
Brilliant. Knox nodded. They'll think they've found our secret identity, stop looking for deeper cover stories. Meanwhile, our real operation stays hidden behind what they think is our hidden operation. The implementation began immediately. Carefully selected documents were accidentally left where observant investigators would find them. Training sessions were modified to occasionally show hints of advanced military expertise, quickly covered but not quite hidden.
They're taking the bait, Zane reported, monitoring communications.
Cartel analysts are building profiles on our military backgrounds. They think they've figured out why they can't crack our defenses. The pressure shifted as their opponents focused on this new discovery. Instead of trying to expose their operation, the Criminal Alliance began treating them as a known quantity, dangerous but understood. Now comes the real test, Sarah observed. Can we maintain 3 separate identities, the simple farmers, the legitimate training center, and what they think is our secret military background? Wade watched the sun setting over his transformed valley. The farm still operated, crops still grew, but now it was part of a complex layered deception. Each identity was real in its own way, each one hiding something deeper.
We adapt, he said finally. Keep them focusing on what they think they've discovered. Meanwhile, our real strength stays hidden. Not in our military background or our training capabilities, but in the community we've built. The network they still don't see.
The team nodded, understanding. They'd created something unique, a defense system that could show different faces to different observers, each one real enough to withstand scrutiny while hiding deeper truths.
As night fell, Wade's security network continued its unseen work. Behind the facade of legitimate training activities, behind the careful show of military expertise, the real operation continued unchanged. The Criminal Alliance thought they'd finally understood the Valley's defense, never realizing they'd only seen what Wade wanted them to see. The Criminal Alliance's response came at dawn, not with violence or threats, but with something far more dangerous: legitimacy. 3 separate development companies filed simultaneous lawsuits challenging the Valley's various protective designations. Environmental surveys, historical preservation claims, and zoning restrictions all came under legal attack.
They're not trying to break in anymore, Zane reported, reviewing the legal documents.
They're trying to break down our administrative defenses. Professional lawyers, expert witnesses, even political pressure.
Wade studied the mounting challenges. The criminal organizations had learned from their failures, adapting their approach to target the valley's legal protections rather than its physical defenses. 4 different archaeological teams requesting access, Sarah called in, all with court orders. They're using the lawsuits to force us to prove our historical site claims. Knox monitored the situation from his sniper's nest, now disguised as a training observation post. Got media crews setting up on the ridge. They're documenting everything, looking for inconsistencies in our story. The pressure was mounting from all sides. The training center's legitimate operations had to continue while the team dealt with these new threats. Every class, every exercise, had to maintain their cover while defending against increasingly sophisticated probing. EPA inspectors arrived early, Nash reported. They're demanding access to those contaminated areas we claimed existed. Got ground-penetrating radar and soil testing equipment. The Criminal Alliance had learned to use the system against them. Each legitimate investigation threatened to expose another layer of their deception. The carefully constructed stories that had protected the valley were being systematically dismantled. Time to show them our final card, Wade decided. The one we've been holding back. The team gathered in the barn, now serving as both legitimate training facility and covert command center. Wade's plan was audacious. Instead of fighting the investigations, they would embrace them. Let them in, he ordered. All of them. The archaeologists, the EPA, the media, but show them exactly what we want them to see. The operation that followed was a masterpiece of coordinated deception. As investigators arrived to challenge their claims, they found exactly what they were looking for, but not in the way they expected.
The archaeological teams discovered genuine Native American artifacts, carefully preserved and documented. The EPA found real but harmless soil anomalies that supported their contamination story. Every investigation confirmed their claims while revealing nothing of their true purpose.
Beautiful setup, Cyrus observed, watching the experts examine their evidence. Everything they find is legitimate, just not for the reasons they think. But the pressure was taking its toll. Maintaining multiple cover stories under intense scrutiny pushed the team to their limits. Each identity, farmers, trainers, suspected military operators, had to be perfectly maintained. Got movement on the North Ridge, Thompson's boy reported. Cartel observers watching the investigations. They're waiting for something to crack. Wade knew they were approaching a critical moment. The Criminal Alliance had committed significant resources to this legal assault. If it failed, they would likely resort to more direct methods.
Sir, Sarah called urgently.
One of the EPA inspectors made a call. Pattern matches cartel communication protocols. They've got someone on the inside of the investigation team.
This was the moment Wade had been waiting for. Let them think they found something. Time to show them why this valley's really impregnable.
The team implemented their final deception. The compromised inspector was allowed to discover evidence of their military background, carefully prepared documentation that suggested they were exactly what the cartels suspected, retired special operators running a legitimate training facility.
They're taking the bait, Zane reported, monitoring communications. Cartel leadership is pulling back their legal teams. They think they've finally understood what they're dealing with.
But this apparent victory brought new challenges. The Criminal Alliance, believing they'd exposed the Valley's defenders as former military operators, began planning a different kind of operation.
Intercepted communications suggest they're bringing in professional military contractors, Knox warned. They think they know what we are now, so they're preparing to fight us on those terms.
Wade gathered his team for a crucial briefing. The Valley's transformation was entering its final phase. They'd shown their opponents exactly what they expected to see, but the real strength of their defense remained hidden.
Let them think they've figured us out, Wade instructed.
Let them prepare to fight retired operators. Meanwhile, our real advantage, the community network, the civilian observers, the integrated defense system, stays invisible.
Sarah arrived with updates from her civilian network. Every farmer, rancher, and townsperson was prepared for what was coming. They'd trained for this, not as soldiers, but as community members protecting their home.
They see the training center. They see our military backgrounds, Wade explained. What they don't see is how deep our defense really goes. How every person in this valley is part of something bigger than they imagine.
The sun set on what appeared to be the Criminal Alliance's victory. They thought they'd exposed the valley's secret, understood its defenses. Instead, they'd fallen for the final layer of deception.
Tomorrow, Wade told his team, they'll come in force. Professional operators against what they think are retired soldiers. But they'll find something very different.
The team dispersed to their positions, each understanding their role in what was to come. The Criminal Alliance had spent months trying to understand why they couldn't take this valley. Tomorrow, they would learn the truth, but not the truth they expected. As darkness fell, Wade watched the valley prepare. Not just his team, but every member of the community moving into practice positions. The real strength of their defense wasn't in military training or tactical expertise, but in something the cartels would never understand: the power of a community united in its own defense. The Criminal Alliance struck at midnight, exactly as Wade had predicted. Their force was impressive: professional military contractors, former Special Forces operators, cutting-edge equipment. They came prepared to face what they thought was the valley's defense. A small team of retired Delta operators running a training facility. What they found was something entirely different. "Contact West," Tommy Thompson whispered into his radio, his voice steady as he watched from his family's barn. 3 teams moving through the wheat field.
Confirmed movement east, Sarah added from her position. They're using standard military approach patterns.
All across the valley, similar reports flowed in. Not from Wade's team, but from farmers, ranchers, shopkeepers, ordinary people who'd learned to be extraordinary observers. The criminal force found itself being tracked by dozens of hidden eyes. "They're good," Knox observed from his position. "Professional movements, proper tactical spacing. They think they're up against a handful of old soldiers." Wade watched from his command center as the operation unfolded. The attackers moved with precision, clearly expecting to face military resistance. Instead, they encountered something they'd never trained for: a whole community acting as one coordinated defense force.
"First team approaching Henderson's place," Zane reported. "Triggering response pattern Alpha."
The criminal force's first surprise came when their communications suddenly failed, not from military jamming, but from a network of civilian radio operators flooding every frequency with seemingly random chatter. Their night vision equipment encountered unexpected interference from ordinary farm security lights, strategically placed and timed.
"They're adjusting," Sarah called in. "Switching to hand signals, trying to maintain formation."
That's when the valley's true defense revealed itself. Farmers moved their equipment according to practiced patterns, each routine action part of a larger plan. Irrigation systems activated, turning firm ground into mud. Cattle were released, disrupting careful formations. Every civilian action became a tactical obstacle. "Western team is split," Tommy reported. "Got separated by Miller's herd, lost their tactical advantage." The professional operators found their military training working against them. They were prepared for armed resistance, for tactical encounters. Instead, they faced a coordinated series of ordinary events that somehow destroyed their carefully planned approach. "They're realizing something's wrong," Knox observed. "Starting to understand this isn't what they expected." The criminal force's command structure began to show signs of stress. Their planned operation was falling apart, not from direct opposition, but from an inability to maintain any tactical advantage. Every move they made was countered by seemingly innocent civilian activities.
"Time for Phase 2, Wade ordered.
Across the valley, lights began coming on in houses. Doors opened as residents stepped out, phone cameras recording. The professional operators found themselves suddenly exposed, their covert approach now documented by dozens of civilians. "Police have been notified of suspicious activity," Sarah broadcast on an open channel. "Multiple residents reporting armed intruders. State police tactical units en route."
The criminal forces commander realized too late the trap they'd walked into. They couldn't engage without creating civilian witnesses, couldn't retreat without being recorded. Every option had been systematically removed, not by military force, but by civilian presence. "They're starting to withdraw," Zane reported. "But Thompson's delayed logging trucks are blocking the main road. Martin's construction work has the alternate route closed. Every escape path leads them into another civilian obstacle." Wade's team hadn't fired a shot, hadn't engaged in any direct confrontation. Instead, they'd orchestrated a defense that turned ordinary civilian life into an impenetrable barrier. "State police roadblocks are in position," Sheriff Cooper confirmed. "FBI tactical teams approaching from the south. We've got dozens of civilian witnesses and clear evidence of armed intruders." The Criminal Alliance's professional force found itself in an impossible position. They were trapped not by soldiers, but by an entire community that had turned everyday life into a coordinated defense system. "Final phase," Wade ordered. Across the valley, farmers started their morning routines, exactly on schedule, precisely as planned. The criminal operators found themselves trying to maintain tactical positions while surrounded by civilians going about their daily work. Every movement they made was witnessed, recorded, reported. "They're breaking," Knox reported. "Command element is calling for full retreat. They finally understand what they're really facing." The criminal force withdrew in disarray, their careful military planning useless against a defense they'd never imagined. They'd come prepared to fight soldiers and found themselves defeated by farmers. In the aftermath, Wade gathered his team for a final assessment. The valley's true defense had been revealed, but in a way that made it even more secure. "They'll never understand what really happened here," Sarah observed. "They thought they were fighting a military operation disguised as a training center." "Instead," Knox added, "they discovered that military training was just a small part of something much larger." Wade watched the sun rise over his valley, now more secure than ever. The Criminal Alliance had brought their best: professional operators, tactical experts, military equipment, all defeated not by superior force, but by the power of a community united in its own defense. "That's what they never understood," Wade explained to his team. "We didn't turn farmers into soldiers. We helped a community learn to protect itself by being exactly what it is: farmers, ranchers, ordinary people working together." The valley's transformation was complete, not into a military stronghold or a tactical training facility, but into something far more formidable, a community that could defend itself without ever appearing defensive. "They'll study this for years," Zane noted, reviewing the night's events. "Professional military operators completely neutralized without a single shot fired. No tactical engagement, no direct confrontation. Just a community going about its business in a very coordinated way." As the valley returned to its normal routine, Wade reflected on how far they'd come. The Criminal Alliance had spent months trying to understand why they couldn't take this territory. In the end, they'd failed because they were looking for the wrong thing, searching for military defenses when the real strength lay in unity, coordination, and the power of ordinary people working together. "So what now?" Sarah asked as the team watched the valley wake up to its new reality. "Now," Wade replied, "we go back to farming, back to running our training center, back to being exactly what we appear to be, a community that takes care of its own." The sun climbed higher, illuminating a valley that looked exactly the same as it had the day before. But something had changed. The Criminal Alliance had finally learned why this territory was impregnable, not because it was defended by soldiers, but because it was protected by something far more powerful: a community that had learned to turn ordinary life into an extraordinary defense. Up next, 2 more incredible stories are waiting for you right on your screen. If you enjoyed this one, you won't want to miss these. Just click to watch, and don't forget to subscribe. It would mean a lot.